Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto Was Raised by Kyuubi from birth. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Itachi was spotted entering the neighborhood gun store. Although his eyes appeared uninterested in the unskilled shinobi, a skilled observer could tell he was nervous about something. Could this store be the source? A man with numerous scars behind the counter was sharpening some swords when he opened the sliding door. The middle-aged man grinned as he glanced up at the Uchiha, his eyes narrowed. "Ah, Itachi-kun, I have your order." Itachi gave a nod. "I'm pretty sure it wasn't an easy sword to forge." The man let out a sigh. "Damn right it wasn't. You better be lucky I decided to forge a weapon of this caliber. Now follow me to the back," Itachi replied with a nod. Naruto said as he glanced around as Team 7 came to a stop in a clearing. Sakura slapped him on the head as Sasuke complained. "Yo, I gotta go to the bathroom, be right back." Naruto dismissed it as unimportant and left for the woods. Naruto left a few moments later. With a gratingly nasal voice, he remarked, I wrote my whole name." Sasuke charged at him with a kunai as Sakura was reprimanding him. When Naruto noticed this, he leapt back and produced one of his own. "Sasuke-kun, what are you doing?" "That's Naruto." "Yeah, you teme. What the hell is wrong with you?" Sasuke laughed. "Shut up, you phony. Your transformation skills suck. My brother doesn't sound like that, nor is he shorter than me. Plus, you have a kunai holster. Naruto didn't wear one, and your whole demeanor screams, fake." When Naruto exploded into smoke, an aim.nin with a breather was visible. "You saw through my disguise, you're pretty clever." As Sasuke deadpanned, "Actually no, whatever, you're outnumbered 3.2, come out guys." The aim.nin looked around, wondering what his teammates were doing, but nobody came out. As he came out, the real Naruto said, "Correction, you are the one who is outnumbered." Sasuke grinned. With a menacing grin, the aim.nin turned to face the boy. With trepidation, he inquired, "Where are my teammates?" He said, rather coldly and bloodily, "Oh, I killed them. And you're about to die too, right Sasuke?" Sasuke nodded, his Sharingan eyes tinged with bloodlust. When the mask-wearing ninja realized that Sasuke was charging at incredible speeds in the direction of the aim.nin, they leapt back. Then, two water clones were summoned to confront Sasuke. With a sly smile, Sasuke pulled out his sword, which he named Uchiwa, and slashed at a clone. The clone blocked the slash with a kunai, so Sasuke leapt back and charged forward once more. This time, he slashed downward, causing the Bunshin to jump, and the other clone attempted to engage him, but Sasuke kicked it away with ease. Sakura was mildly horrified by the expression in Sasuke's eyes as he charged into combat. The declaration made by Naruto still shocked her. For what reason did he have to murder his teammates? Leaping back, Sasuke dashed through hand seals. Kaden. Phoenix Fire Jutsu. He spit out several fireballs, burning one clone as Sasuke swiftly stabbed the other. Then he turned to face the frightened aim.nin. The enemy genin's eyes widened as Sasuke ran up the tree the aim.nin was on. He attempted to jump, but his body would not move, so Sasuke used the moment to stab the terrified genin in the chest. The man had a heaven scroll, which surprised Naruto when he jumped down from his treetop position to search him after the body fell. Naruto grinned. "Yo, Sasuke." As he cleaned the blood from his sword, Sasuke glanced over his shoulder. "I found the heaven scroll." As soon as the blood was gone, Sasuke stood up and hurried to observe. "Yup, it is. Now we can go help Hinata's team." Sakura appeared just as they were ready to depart. "Hey, are you just gonna act like nothing happened?" Naruto glanced behind him. "What you mean?" Sakura gave a frustrated shake of her head. "You killed that guy and his team? Was that necessary? All to just get a stupid scroll?" Sasuke said, "Yes. I can't believe you too. You could have just knocked them out or something, so why kill them?" As he and Naruto continued to walk, the Uchiha said impassively, "Because Sakura, in the shinobi world, when you are entrusted with something important as these scrolls, you have to expect to forfeit your life if enemies were to arise to take it. That still doesn't justify what you've done. You two are monsters." Sasuke and Naruto halted. Sakura became tense instantly. As he gazed up at the tall forest in front of them, the team's blonde let out a breath. "Look, killing isn't a choice, it's a job. We don't like to kill, we aren't used to killing, and we never will. But we learn how to turn off our emotions. Sakura, if we had just knocked them out, they would just wake up, and seek us out again and challenge us. In the real world, do you think an enemy shinobi will just knock you out and wait for you to regain consciousness while he has an important document? No, he'll kill you. No remorse. No exceptions. Sakura simply nodded and followed them, unable to believe what she was hearing. Team 8 was rushing against the clock to locate Team 7 and alert them to Gaara. With the image of the redhead still fresh in her mind, Hinata swallowed for the third time in less than an hour. D09. Jutsu flashback. At the moment, Team 8 was watching a game between an Omegakure team and that Sand team. Akamaru started to whine. Kiba whispered, "What's wrong, Akamaru?" to him. The puppy's whimpering increased. Hinata questioned, "What's he saying?" "He's saying that the one with the umbrella is dangerous," replied Kiba. As the aim.nin threw a volley of needles at Gaara's team, Team 8 looked on. Gaara just stood. As a wall of sand encircled him to shield him from the needles, the team watched in disbelief. "I see, how could I have mistook that?" Shino made up his mind to ask, "What is it, Kiba?" Akamaru said that the umbrella guy was in danger. He said that Gaara was the dangerous one, and that sand, it stinks of blood. Team 8 turned away in disbelief as they saw the AIM team get crushed by the sand. However, Hinata nearly passed out at what he said next. Next on our list is Uzumaki's team. I can't wait. Jutsu flashback. Free. At this point, Team 8 was frantically looking for anything pink, blonde, or a jacket featuring a Uchiha fan. Hinata feared for Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto.kun. Even though Kiba didn't like Naruto, he didn't want him killed. Shino only wanted to avoid seeing Hinata cry. That was sufficient. Team 7 became aware that not one, but two teams were pursuing them. This made them tense. Sasuke came up with a plan when they arrived at another clearing. Unexpectedly, a strong gust of wind materialized. Thinking fast, Naruto clasped his hands together and slammed them to the ground. Bracken dance. The team braced themselves against the bone spikes that surrounded them. The team from Kusa emerged as the wind died down. Sasuke's and Naruto's eyes grew wide. They haven't even sensed them. The team's Kunoichi chuckled. Kukakuku, impressive, such a use of Bracken dance. I never seen it used like this in a while. You truly are Kushina Kaguya's son, Kukuku. Naruto's gaze expanded. This intrigued both of the unidentified teams. How, do you know my mother? The Kunoichi dismissed her teammates with a wave, and they disappeared into the forest. Naruto's red eyes screamed, "Tell me, how do you know my mother? Answer me," demanding. The Kunoichi simply smiled and rushed towards them at breakneck speed. She then kicked Naruto in the stomach and comboed him into the tree trunk behind them before falling. Naruto landed with a thud after cracking the trunk. "Naruto!" yelled Sasuke. Sakura simply smiled and drew a kunai as Sasuke slashed at the Kunoichi with his sword and shoved her away. Sasuke was kneed in the face during their one-sided battle, and the Uchiha pulled back, clenching his face as the Kunoichi backhanded him so forcefully that he flew into a tree trunk beside Naruto. Sakura turned around to confront the strange Kunoichi, watching in horror. She suddenly found herself repeatedly seeing different versions of her death. Unconscious, Sakura collapsed to the ground. Naruto and Sasuke gritted their teeth as they gazed up at the Kunoichi. With his hand bracing the tree, Naruto stood up and uttered the words, "This is no ordinary Kunoichi." They saw the Kunoichi remove the earth scroll from Sakura's pouch, put it to her mouth, and swallow it whole as Sasuke nodded as he rose to his feet. The boys gazed in wonder and disdain. Once more, the Kunoichi chuckled. "My name is Orochimaru," she said, and when she touched her headband, it changed from zigzags to a musical note. Then she tore off her face, exposing a man with snake-like eyes and pale skin. The brothers knew right away who it was, and all they could hope for was that the other teams snooping on them would soon assist. Biting both thumbs, Orochimaru made hand seals and yelled, summoning jutsu. Two enormous snakes materialized in a puff of smoke, and they both charged at the brothers with hisses. They both silently nodded and made hand seals as they leapt over the snakes. Futon. Whirlwind Fist. Kaden. Grand Fireball Jutsu. The wind engulfed the snakes and fueled the fire. As soon as they touched down, they charged at the snake Sannin. Sasuke went to seize Sakura, but Naruto pulled out two bone swords and ran at Orochimaru, fighting him with Kenjutsu and Taijutsu. Orochimaru ducked as Naruto stabbed. The snake used a kunai to block Naruto's swipe. Frustrated, Naruto kicked at Orochimaru's chest and used the momentum to flip back, hopping lightly on his foot in a Genji dance. He rushed in at blurring speeds and spun around quickly, striking Orochimaru before being launched into the air. The blonde stopped and threw finger bullets at him, raising the snake, and then jumped, his back to Orochimaru's front. He yelled, "The final blow," and then quickly turned to launch a flurry of bone spikes from his chest, burying Orochimaru in them. Naruto landed and grinned at his creation. The bones were reduced to tiny fragments. Sasuke smirked at Naruto as he appeared beside him. When they looked, they saw mud instead of blood. "Shit!" both of them yelled. The snake Sannin moved closer to Naruto's ear as Orochimaru emerged from the ground, punched Sasuke away, and grabbed him by the neck to hold him up. "Do you want to know how I know your mother?" Sweat was streaming down Naruto's body, and he was clearly trembling. "I killed her, just after you were born, kukakukuku." With his anger building, Naruto clenched and unclenched his fists as tears streamed down his face. Naruto turns to see Sasuke standing with a scrape on his side in his hand. The blonde had a dead-on look. He ignored the movement he noticed in the brush because he was focused on one thing at the moment. "Oh, this idiot will pay." Naruto was in a trance when the snake punched him in the stomach, knocking him unconscious, and Orochimaru laughed at his expression. He had better not get distracted because he still needed to give Sasuke-kun his gift, so Orochimaru threw him aside. Sasuke was attempting to interpret what he had heard. Orochimaru murdered the mother of his closest friends. That's really low. Unsteadily, Sasuke got to his feet, clinging to Uchiwa for balance. Orochimaru's gold, snake-like ones were captured by Sasuke's Sharingan, and he charged forward with a battle cry. Orochimaru just sidestepped and aimed a brief jab at Sasuke's face as he swung his katana. After blocking it with the Sharingan, the Uchiha suddenly grabbed his sword and swung it at Orochimaru's arm, cutting it. The snake man laughed at the boy as he took a step back and clenched the wound on his arm. "Kukakuku, that's it. Show me your anger, Sasuke-kun." With a rush, Sasuke punched Orochimaru in the stomach, causing him to grunt from the force. He then stabbed Uchiwa on the ground, followed by more punches and a kick that sent the snake flying. Then Sasuke took hold of his legs and encircled Orochimaru's neck with his own. "Take this." Falcon drop. Sasuke backed up slightly and leaned against a tree, struggling to breathe as the snake's skull cracked as he hit the rough ground below. The boy saw his teammate Sakura appear after noticing movement behind him. After getting up and reaching into his pocket, Sasuke threw the actual scrolls to her. Sasuke-kun, Sakura. Go to the tower, get help from the Anbu, and lead them here. Understood? But Sasuke-kun, I'm not going to leave you two alone so you can fight that thing. Sakura, just go, please, just go, we'll make it there as soon as we can. Sakura's eyes widened as she gazed at him. She had never seen Sasuke-kun so helpless. She nodded and her eyes hardened. She jumped off to the tower after saying, "Okay, but please, stay safe." Sasuke realized he was immobile when he turned to face forward. Damn it, his eyes grew wide. I was apprehended. Orochimaru's hands were in a seal, and Sasuke's gaze was fixed on him. As Sasuke watched helplessly, the Sannin reached out and aimed to bite him. "Kukuku, I've caught my prey, Kukuku." Crunch. Sasuke's gaze expanded. He turned to face the one who had saved him. Neji, he spat. Sasuke saw their female teammate and the Rock Lee guy standing guard over him. For Sasuke, Neji took the bite. No, Orochimaru's eyes grew wide. Neji clutched the mark on his neck and grunted in pain as the snake withdrew. It started to resemble three outward-pointing spikes. He collapsed, unconscious on the floor. Tenten yelled, "Neji," in a worried tone. Lee gave the snake Sannin a fierce look. "Fiend. What sort of unyouthful jutsu did you use on Neji?" Orochimaru forced a sly smile. "Well, that didn't go as planned. Oh well, I'll just try again." Orochimaru yelled, "Stop, Orochimaru," as he turned to face an unexpected visitor. Orochimaru was taken aback and asked, "Kimimaro?" Was Kimimaro against him? Incredibly so. He must have taken action on his own since he didn't see Jirobo or Tayuya nearby. "Orochimaru, you lied to me," he yelled, running in his direction. Orochimaru leapt and landed on a branch, where he glared down at the Kagaya as Kimimaro swung his bone sword. Orochimaru hissed as he made a seal, and then Kimimaro screamed in agony as the mark on his chest turned blood red. "I'll make you suffer." He fell to the ground because the pain was too great. As he ran to assist this stranger, Lee yelled, "Kimimaro-san!" Orochimaru took advantage of the situation to leap down and punch Lee across the face, sending the leaf genin sprawling to the ground. Tenten watched in horror. She was unable to move an inch. Since Sasuke was still paralyzed, he hoped that Lee or Kimimaro would be able to dispel the jutsu. However, Sasuke was unaware that Lee was incapable of performing jutsu. When Sasuke looked at the girl with the buns in her hair, he saw that she was frozen in place. Sasuke swore. The snake took the Uchiha by the collar and held him up while he sank his teeth into him. "Now let's try this again." Orochimaru made some hand seals. Sasuke screamed as the curse seal of heaven formed on his neck. He hit the ground with a thud after Orochimaru dropped him. Sasuke. Orochimaru's eyes widened as a chakra burst. Tenten passed out as the pressure from the chakra overcame him. Red chakra formed a fox like cloak around Naruto's body as he awoke. A white mask appeared on his face. A bone tail grew from his rear end, and the white mass traveled down his neck and made a hole in his chest. The boy was clearly crying. "This anger makes me think of Kushina, Kukuku." The snake man laughed aloud, Orochimaru said. Orochimaru exclaimed, "Now that I've done my deed, I no longer have to hold back," and a snake emerged from his mouth, which then expelled the fabled Kusanagi. After giving the sword a fierce look, Naruto made his own bone sword. With a cry of battle, the two fighters charged. Before realizing she had genjutsu, Sakura felt as though she was running in circles as she sprinted towards the tower. The genjutsu faded out with a loud release, revealing Dosu Kin and Zaku, the other Auto Genin. Zaku grinned and exclaimed, well, it's just a little girl. We're so gonna kick ass." Sakura came to a complete halt. The pinkhead gave a scowl. "This is not something I have time for." Naruto and Sasuke-kun are. Zaku used an air cannon to send her to a tree trunk, literally blowing her out of her mind. Sakura stood up trembling and scowled. "Damn you. Genjutsu. Infinite darkness." The Auto team found themselves encircled by a pitch black void. "Alright, what is this little girl playing at?" "Kin, dispel the genjutsu," Dosu said, squinting his eyes. Dosu didn't hear anything. "Kin, dispel it, now." "Chakra scalpel," Dosu heard, followed by a thud. Dosu searched the area for the source of that, but when he felt a blow to his legs, he lost control and collapsed. Zaku fell with a thud as the boy continued to blast his air cannons whenever he heard something move, until he felt his arms go limp and then he was kicked in the back. After the darkness passed, a victorious Sakura emerged, smiling that she had disabled them. She didn't say anything as she hurried to the tower, not even taking Naruto's words into account. Orochimaru was stabbed by the snake after Naruto missed with a claw swipe. The blonde jumped back and snorted. He turned to see Tenten and Lee, who had regained consciousness, guarding the unconscious and wounded Kimimaro, Neji, and Sasuke after they had been fighting for an hour. Naruto was forced to make use of it. He muttered, "Shadow clone jutsu," as a swarm of clones materialized. They only had darkened whiskers and red eyes, and he sent them after the snake while he produced a whirling mass of red chakra with his right hand. Tenten and Lee watched in wonder. Kusanagi was about to kill when Orochimaru swiftly destroyed the clones and charged, but he missed Naruto's charge. "Take this." Rasengan. The Sanin's eyes widened as the brat used a strong jutsu that was made by that meddling Yondaime to defeat him. Orochimaru was sent spiraling through the forest while yelling a string of curses. "You're not getting away." Naruto saw an Orochimaru on the ground with a startled look on his face as he followed the Rasengan's path. With a roar, Naruto started repeatedly punching him in the face. When Naruto finally ran out of steam a few minutes later, he saw that the chakra cloak had finally disappeared. He was shocked to learn that Orochimaru was actually a mud clone. The blonde's tail and bone mask broke as he howled and started to cry. Anko Mitarashi led a team of Anbu to the scene, accompanied by their medic, Haku. Haku gasped and immediately started working on Sasuke after Lee and Tenten described how Orochimaru appeared and bit Sasuke and Neji. Anko saw that Kimimaro was coming too. Kimimaro then informed Anko that they needed to get Naruto before he could speak with them. A few yards away, Anko discovered him staring dead-eyed at the ground. Anko put them all together. "Your teams automatically pass. You can follow the Anbu straight to the tower." The others nodded. Anko looks over at Kimimaro. "Kimimaro. Was it? We'll talk with the Sandaime tomorrow. Everyone's been through a lot today." Kimimaro gave a nod. The dreamscape of Sasuke. Sasuke surveyed the carnage all around him. Dead, his fellow Uchiha. This wasn't supposed to happen. Sasuke rushed to witness Fugaku murder his mother. They ought not to have perished. A younger version of Sasuke was crying when he turned around. Then the sobbing abruptly stopped. He muttered, "You let them die," and Sasuke gasped, staring at him with snake-like eyes. "You let them die," he was saying again. Sasuke gave a headshake. "No, I didn't let them die. If I had the power to do so, I would have stopped Fugaku." Sasuke, the child, chuckled. "Power, with power we can do lots of things, with power we can extract revenge against Fugaku." Sasuke, the elder, clenched his jaw. Then he grinned. He threw a kunai at the younger Sasuke and watched as the weapon struck the fighter, shattering him into pieces. I don't need revenge. I don't need your power," he said. With a contented grin, Sasuke began to dream about a particular girl. The dreamscape of Neji observed his father being presented to Kumogakure. Neji closed his eyes and shed a few infrequent tears. "I would stop at nothing to get Heishi to pay." When Neji turned around, he saw a younger version of himself staring at him with yellow snake-like eyes. "You want vengeance?" "No, we want vengeance." Neji, who was older, could only nod sheepishly. "Yes. I want revenge against the Hyuga and Heishi. They offered my father to those Kumo dogs against his will. I need the power to kill him." Neji, younger, laughed. "If it's power you want, power you shall get." The Hyuga was surrounded by black markings. A sly smile was on Neji's face. In the darkness, Sasuke was falling. His entire body was submerged in pitch-black water. Sasuke, halfway through, he opened his eyes. "Am I getting a call?" When Sasuke opened his eyes, he saw Haku. Sasuke looked up, down, left, and right, but he was unable to identify the source of the voice. Sasuke. He noticed a shimmering light behind him. He instinctively swam in its direction. Sasuke felt as though something was in his way when he arrived, but he persisted. Sasuke. When Sasuke emerged from Haku's stomach, his expression changed to one of horror and shock. "Ah. Sasuke-kun." Haku was in Sasuke's hospital room, dozing off while observing his serene form, but she was startled awake by his bloody murder scream. When the worried girl hurried to the Uchiha's bedside, she saw that he was panting, had sweat on his face, and had his eyes squeezed shut. As soon as the door opened, a medic.nin hurried inside. He asked her, "Is he okay?" After opening one eye, Sasuke reassured everyone, saying, "I'm fine, it was just a bad dream." Haku took his pillow and leaned it against his back as Sasuke shakily stood up to sit, and Sasuke gave her a feeble smile. As soon as the three people in the room heard a lot of footsteps, Team 7, Hinata, and Kakashi emerged through the door. Sasuke. Naruto rushed to him, and the two of them exchanged high fives. Sasuke grinned and nodded, saying, "I see you're awake now, His older brother then turned to give him a tender embrace. He whispered, "I heard what happened, I'm proud of you." Sasuke grinned as his eyes grew wide and he looked down. Sakura watched from a distance as Hinata ran up and gave him a hug as well. She didn't feel like she belonged with them or Sasuke-kun. Kakashi was staring at Sasuke when he turned to look. He stated plainly, "You must Kakashi Hitaki." Kakashi gave nod. Kakashi pointed to the medic nin and said, "Yes, I was in your team's scrolls. I'm here to tell you that you've passed. The next portion of the exam will be in 2 days. Will you be able to recover then?" The physician gave a nod. Sasuke grinned. Then Kakashi turned around. He waved them away as he said, "Well, that's good to hear. I'll let Hokage-sama know." "Sorry, but only Sasuke-sama's family is allowed to stay, the rest of you are to leave," the doctor replied. Sakura, Hinata, and Haku then departed. They were called out by Naruto. "See you girls later." Tenten was observing Neji sleep while seated backwards in her chair. The third day of the Chunin exams was halfway through. She had a lot on her mind at the moment, mostly those guys from Kimimaro and Naruto. She saw them both do the same thing. They both took bones from their bodies and turned them into weapons. It was fascinating to her. There was a grunt, and her ears pricked. She smiled as she looked up. She exclaimed, "Neji, you're Neji?" as her eyes grew wide. Neji's body was covered in black, pointed tattoo-like marks, and his form was surrounded by a menacing purple chakra. But what really frightened her was the crazy expression in his eyes. Sakura, Haku, and Hinata all made their way down the tower's corridor, ready to retire to their rooms and take a nap. Haku was somewhat taken aback that Ino would attempt to spoil her and Naruto's date. Really, Hinata? That's what happened? I can't believe Ino would do something like that, she exclaimed. Hinata gave a nod. She claims that she saw a spider. Her lies are as fake as her nails. Sakura gave a snort. HMPH, that sounds definitely something that Ino.Pig would do. Haku was intrigued and inquired, but why did Ino.San do it? It's because Ino has had the hots for Naruto since academy days. She didn't look at any other boy except Naruto. Her lust for him grew as we got older. And she sees Hinata as an obstacle, Sakura clarified. Haku said aloud, so basically she sees Naruto.Kun as an ideal and not a person. An ideal? Hinata asked herself. Haku stopped, followed by Sakura and Hinata. An ideal is something that you know you'll never have, and yet you still seek it. In this case, Naruto is the ideal. I'm pretty sure Naruto.Kun had more than just one fangirl. They all see Naruto as what they want in a boyfriend. The ideal boy. So they proceed to chase after him, knowing that they'll never be his. Hinata nodded and appeared taken aback by the older girl's insight. Sakura considered what Haku had said. Do I behave that way towards Sasuke.Kun? An ideal. The final day's evening. The Anbu at the door said, Ah, Anko.San. The Hokage will see you now. Anko gave a nod. Okay, Kimimaro, let's go. Sarutobi smoked his pipe for a while, taking in all that Anko and Kimimaro had to say. Sarutobi gave them a death stare. At moments like these, I would cancel the Chunin exams. But that won't be possible, will it, Kimimaro.Kun? Kimimaro gave a headshake. No, Orochimaru won't hold back if you were to cancel it. Sarutobi paused to inform the boy standing in front of his desk. The boy was tall for his age but ridiculously thin. He was, above all, Naruto's cousin. An additional Shikatsunyaku heir. This information increases the Kekkei Genkei's chances of surviving. In addition, the boy served Orochimaru and spent the majority of his life in a cage. However, based on his body language, he comes across as genuine and grounded. Kimimaro.Kun, I understand you're being hunted by Orochimaru, isn't that right? The boy gave a nod. Well, I'll have one of my best Jonin look after you. A knock on the door was heard. You called me, Hokage, Sama? Anko's gaze expanded. You can't be serious, him? On the prelim day. Every genin who finished the tests was in the spotlight. The Hokage, the Jonin sensei, a man with a huge sword and bandages on his face were standing in front of them. Hiruzen took a step forward. Congratulations for all who passed. Now I'm pretty sure some of you are wondering why this exam takes place twice a year. Haku, who was listening in with the senseis, Naruto, Sasuke, Shikamaru, Shino, Hinata, and a few others were also curious about that. Well, that's easy, to become Chunin, Zaku exclaimed, after bandaging both of his arms. Sandaime gave a headshake. While that's the ultimate goal of the exams, that's not the purpose. I will omit this explanation. Now, onto the rules. He began, but the man with the sword moved forward. Allow me, Zabuza Momochi, to explain this portion of the exams, he replied. Some of the genin complained, okay, listen up. There are too many of guys, so we'll have to have a preliminary round. Shut the hell up, anyway, there are too many of you. The prelims are fought one-on-one. You can't get help from any of your allies. And killing is allowed, but if you don't want to die, give up before that happens. Now, do any of you want to give up right now? As if anyone was going to give up, Naruto snorted. When Kabuto, Tayuya, Jirobo, and that mummy looking sound guy raised their hands along with Kimamaro's teammates, his eyes widened. Kabuto.Kun. Sakura pondered, wondering why he would give up. Zabuza gave them a critical glance and shrugged because they were all rather damaged. Alright, you four can wait in your rooms for your senseis to arrive, he responded. Now then, your names and your opponents will be displayed on this screen at random, pay attention to it. The genin watched as the names flashed on the screen and came to a halt at 2. Uchiha Sasuke v Ikato Yoroi. Zabuza raised his head to see the names. Will everyone except Sasuke and Yoroi go up the stairs? Haku strode up to Sasuke as his friends wished him luck, and everyone nodded. She gave him a cheek kiss and said, Good luck, Sasuke.Kun. As Haku laughed and ascended the stairs, Sasuke's face flushed. The Uchiha heir looked over at his adversary. His age was easily doubled by Yoroi. Sasuke assumed a kenjutsu stance and pulled out his katana. Beneath the cloth covering his mouth, Yoroi grinned. "'Tis a shame I have to knock you out so early," he replied. Sasuke gave a snort. He pointed at Yoroi and remarked, "You? Knock me out? Ha, don't make me laugh." Zabuza held up a hand. "Sento Kaishi, begin combat." "Okay." Sento Kaishi. With his sword ready to kill, Sasuke charged forward, and Yoroi watched as though Sasuke was mentally ill. "Fool." The elder genin charged forward, his hand glowing blue, and he threw several jabs at the younger genin, which Sasuke easily sidestepped. The older genin saw Sasuke charge forward again with the intention of stabbing him, and Yoroi jumped back after Sasuke swung at him. With a sly smile, Yoroi dodged just in time to seize Sasuke's arm and stab him in the chest. Yoroi grabbed Sasuke by the head and threw him to the ground as he grunted in agony. Sasuke came out sounding exhausted, saying, "NGH, what's going on, my chakra?" As Sasuke attempted to seize his arm, Yoroi grinned triumphantly and said, "It's a special jutsu of mine that drains my opponent's chakra. And you've just run out." Jumping, Yoroi stabbed the boy in the chest after throwing him into the air and grabbing a kunai. Sasuke's mouth gushed blood, and his eyes grew wide. With a victorious grin, Yoroi released kunai. He saw that Sasuke's form was motionless when he landed. Everything seemed to have frozen in place when he looked around. What the genjutsu? Sasuke disappeared into a crowflock as Yoroi looked up. Yoroi looked around, trying to understand what was happening as the crows all circled the arena. Summoning genjutsu. Ephemeral. When some crows gathered in the sky and created Sasuke, the older genin's eyes widened and he placed his hands in the rat seal. Yoroi demanded, How did I get caught in this genjutsu?" Sasuke grinned. "Genjutsu can be initiated in many ways. My clan specializes in this field, but we usually use our Sharingan to activate them." "But you didn't even activate your Sharingan. How did you do it?" Sasuke grinned more broadly. "But there is also another way. Very few people know the fact that genjutsu can be put into play by a simple point of a finger." Yoroi attempted to take in his words. His gaze expanded. "You mean?" "Yup, when I pointed at you before the match, you were under my genjutsu even then." The spectators outside the genjutsu watch in astonishment, surprise, pride, and apathy. As a genjutsu mistress, Kurenai was well versed in this particular style of genjutsu. It was the most lethal and most effective. "Kurenai. Sensei." When Kurenai turned, Shino was staring up at her. It must be significant because Shino's voice was strange. "Yes, what is it?" When Shino looked down, he saw Sasuke with his hands in a seal and a crow on his shoulder, while Yoroi was facing away from him. It was Kiba and Hinata who listened in, asking, "Can you explain to us how this kind of genjutsu works?" Kurenai anticipated the fight. "Well, this type of genjutsu can be initiated by simply pointing at the target. But this one is special, since it is a summoning genjutsu. Rare, but not unheard of." Shino repeated, "How do we dispel it? When you're fighting someone who can use this genjutsu, the best thing to do is to run away." The eyes of Team 8 grew wide. Kiba shouted, "You can't be serious." "Believe me. However, if you are with your allies, you can take him or her on. This genjutsu targets one person. The other ally has to inject her chakra into the one trapped in the genjutsu, which will dispel it." Team 8 observed the conflict. Kiba swallowed. "Sasuke is dangerous, man." Within the genjutsu, as Sasuke made the ram seal, the crows around him changed into black Fuma shuriken and hurried over to Yoroi. "Sorosoro," any word revolving around. "Well, it's time for you to be put to sleep." It appeared as though Yoroi was thrashing about outside the genjutsu. Right now, as Sasuke hurried forward, he kicked Yoroi in the chin and moved behind him using the shadow leaf dance. "Guy. Sensei. Look, yeah, I know, Lee." Sasuke then executed a combo, delivering a strong kick as they were knocked to the ground. "Lights out, Shishi Renden." The kick was so strong that it raised the floor tiles. Rising to his feet, Sasuke grinned at the crow cawing overhead. Zabuza gave a headshake. "Sheesh, Shusa, winner, Sasuke Uchiha." Sasuke triumphantly raised his arms. Yes, Haku, Hinata, and Sasuke's team descended to offer their congratulations. Naruto slapped Sasuke's back a bit too forcefully, making him collide with Haku and kiss her on the lips. "Nice one, Sasuke." The old dude didn't know what hit I am, he exclaimed. When Sasuke was spotted locking with the older girl, everyone's eyes widened to the dinner plates. With a weasel-like snicker, Itachi suddenly produced a camera and snapped a photo. Hinata turned to face Itachi. Anew, what was that for? Hinata, I'll have to get Kurenai to explain the fundamentals of blackmail, Itachi said, still snickering like the weasel he is. When their mouths parted, for a moment, Sasuke was stunned. He could still feel her gentle lips against his. He blushed and shook his head. He spat out, "Ah, Haku. Chan, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry." Haku shook herself out of her reverie as well. She played with her hair and flushed. It's all right, I mean, it was an accident, right? In order to keep his friendship with his crush intact, Sasuke nodded enthusiastically. As she put it sweetly, okay good, then let's just leave this incident behind us, okay? Sasuke nervously scratched the back of his head. Yeah, let's. Zabuza, who was smiling maniacally on the inside, yelled, "Oi! You love birds, get out of the arena, we have to continue the exams." Jumping onto the balcony, Sasuke said, "Sorry, my bad." He was onslaughted. Is that even a word? By Konkuro, Zaku, Choji, and Kiba as he did. So how was it? Is she a good kisser? I saw some tongue, did you enjoy it? Sasuke chuckled uneasily. He turned to see the same questions being posed to Haku. From the Hokage's box, Yokomaru said, "What do you think, old man? You mean the kiss? Then Sasuke has found quite the lucky woman." Yokomaru grinned and crossed his arms. "Yes, and also what do you think about the match?" Sandame put down his hat. Sasuke's skills are beyond Chunin, but not quite Jonin. But we'll see. The match made Orochimaru laugh. Yoroi became overconfident. Despite his attempts to activate the curse seal, Orochimaru was ecstatic behind his disguise. His vessel was doing well. Yamanaka Ino v Hyuga Hinata. "Hina. Chan, do your best," Naruto yelled at her. As she headed downstairs, Hinata turned and waved back at him after spotting Ino at the next set of stairs. She glared at her a little. Zabuza glanced at each of the two kunoichi as they stood facing one another. Hinata appeared composed, while Ino appeared arrogant. "All right, you two know the rules, Sento Kaishi." Ino made the decision to smack talk. "You can bring it on, you're just gonna lose. I've been training extra hard for this match. Lie, so Naruto.kun can be mine." Hinata assumed a Jayuken stance and grinned. She used her favorite quote from a manga she had read to ask, "Are you going to shoot your mouth off, or are you going to bring the pain?" Ino answered, "Oh, am I gonna bring the pain?" Meanwhile, there was a sneeze from someone in a megacure. With a kunai drawn, Ino charged, ready to stab Hinata. However, the Hyuga heiress grabbed the kunai with her bare hands, leaving Ino confused, as Hinata struck her chest with a Jayuken strike. Regretfully, Ino abruptly retreated. Naruto exclaimed, "Woo! Go Hina! Chan!" From the bleachers. Hinata flushed as she glanced over her shoulder. In the meantime, Ino was becoming irritated. Why does Naruto encourage her? Ino foolishly chose to fight Hinata with taijutsu. The blonde kicked, the heiress gracefully dodged, Ino punched, and Hinata ducked. Everyone could see how quickly the match was becoming lopsided. Hinata struck Ino's stomach with a powered Jayuken strike when the heiress spotted a gap. The blonde girl fell to the ground as Ino's eyes widened and blood gushed from her mouth. Hinata said courteously, "Ino-san, you should give up." As Hinata struggled to stand, Ino supported her on her shin. "I won't give up," she yelled as she leapt back and stood up. She made a hand seal while crouching. Mind transfer jutsu. Asuma yelled, "Ino," but it was too late because Ino had already executed the jutsu. Shikamaru gave a headshake. Difficult, the thoughts of Hinata. In Hinata's mind, Ino wandered around, searching for the central control. Hinata's mindscape was a lavish two-story home designed in the family style. The house was white on the inside. When Ino opened what appeared to be a bedroom door, she discovered it was actually a child's room. Is this the room where Hinata may be? As she glanced around, Ino asked herself. Hinata's room wasn't there. On the bedside table, Ino saw a single photograph. She approached it and gave it a look. A man in a red coat with spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker. Like marks on his cheeks was shown in the picture with a young boy who had pale skin, blue eyes, spiky midnight blue hair, 2 red dots on his forehead, and 3 whisker. Like marks on his cheeks. The boy's legs hung over the man's shoulders, while his arms rested atop his head. The boy's smile resembled the man's. With her lavender eyes and long midnight blue hair, the woman in the photo was stunning. She wore a lavender kimono and had pale skin. It was a family portrait of Hinata and Naruto. In shock, Ino dropped the photo and fled the room. Leaning against the wall, she slammed the door. She gritted her teeth and shook her fist. Then she sprinted down the corridor and opened a second door. It led to a second bedroom. Ino's gaze expanded. The master bedroom was the location. Her features were filled with dread as she stalked in. The girl looked into an open closet and saw a red trench coat with black flames on the bottom and a lavender kimono. Ino let out a scream. In the real world, Ino's body was blasted back against the wall for about 5 seconds. Hinata shook her head, her expression going blank. She felt that Ino had pried into her private thoughts. Ino was on her hands and knees, staring up at Hinata as she approached her. "I just don't get it, why do you do this to me?" Ino replied. Leaning over, Hinata whispered in her ear. "I love him, that's why. Ino, let me ask you, do you really love Naruto-kun?" Ino attempted to speak but was unable to do so because she was unable to respond to Hinata's query. "I don't know, I saw him as the ideal boyfriend, With a gentle smile, Hinata gave the girl a hug. "It's okay. Naruto-kun is an amazing person, because he loves me, too. Ino, you'll find someone one day." "I know it," she replied. On Hinata's shoulder, Ino rested her head. Zabuza watched with admiration. Shusa, Hinata Hyuga. To congratulate Hinata, Naruto and Team Aid descended. When Hinata got back up, Kurenai placed a hand on her shoulder. Kurenai remarked, "You did a great job, Hinata. I'm proud of you." Naruto glomped Kurenai after she finished. He yelled, "Hina-chan, good job on your fight." Blushing, Hinata gave the hug back. Ino watched from a crouched vantage point, grinning sorrowfully. "Hinata, you win." A hand was held out to her when she looked. She raised her head. "Kiba?" she inquired. Did Kiba hold out his hand to her? "It's not what you think, I'm just helping you out," he replied. "You might have lost Naruto, but I won't lose Hina-chan." Ino grinned. She took his hand and said, Sure. Ino saw the members of her team approaching her. Choji approached her and inquired, "Ino, are you okay?" "I'll be fine, albeit my pride hurts a little." Asuma took a puff from his cigarette and grinned. As he, Shikamaru, and Choji left, he said, "Okay, I'm going to get the medics to look after you anyway." Ino?" inquired Kiba. "Yeah? Can you let go of my hand?" Blushing, Ino released his grip. The following games passed quickly. In the Zaku vs Shino battle, Shino used his Kakaichu to force Zaku to use his own weapon to blow his arms off. Regarding Shikamaru vs Kin, Shikamaru won by using his cunning. In Tamari vs Choji, the wind user easily outclassed Choji. Kankuro defeated Masumi by using his puppetry skills. "Start with the next match," Zabuza said. The screen of the computer came to life. Kagaya Kimimaro vs Lee Rock Lee exclaimed enthusiastically, "Yosh, Guy. Sensei, it seems it's my turn to fight." Guy's response was as enthusiastic as Lee's. "My youthful student, it's time to show off your flames of youth." "Yes, Guy. Sensei." Lee, Guy, Sensei. Lee, Guy. Sensei, Tenten yelled at them, "Don't you two start," because nobody wanted to see what they were going to do. Neji leaned back against the wall with her arms folded as the girl with the bunny hair commanded Lee to move around, scratching the area of his neck where the bite had occurred every now and then. The Hyuga appeared to be sleep-deprived, and you don't want to encounter a Hyuga who is sleep-deprived. As Lee passed by, Neji made the decision to close his eyes. As Kimimaro observed the interaction between that sensei and his miniature self, she assumed it was a joke. Do these clowns mean business? He saw Rock Lee descend the stairs and come to a halt in front of him. Zabuza glanced at them both quickly. "You know the rules, Sento Kaishi." Kimimaro stood there, his features impassive, while Rock Lee assumed a taijutsu stance. Then at last he said something. "Before we begin, Lee, I have a question for you." Lee was perplexed. He tightened his posture unconsciously and asked, "A question?" Kimimaro gave a small nod. "What is your dream?" Lee answered, "To be a taijutsu master." Kimimaro gave a headshake. His words were, "A foolish dream." Lee felt his pride bruised. "What do you mean, a foolish dream?" he asked. Kimimaro extended his limbs. "If you win, I'll tell you." It was evident that Kimimaro was only slightly impressed when Lee suddenly charged at him with great speed. "I won't have you call me Dream Foolish. Leaf Hurricane." Lee kicked the older genin's head with great force, and Kimimaro put up an arm idly to block. Since Lee was approaching quickly and was wearing weights, everyone could hear the shockwave it created and assumed Kimimaro would dodge, but block. Naruto watched in awe. His voice was a whisper, "Sugoi, amazing." He was fully aware of Kimimaro's actions. Tenten appeared anxious. Something wasn't quite right. Kimimaro saw the look of shock on Lee's face. With the bowl cut by skidding on the ground, Kimimaro kicked Lee painfully with his right foot after spinning on his left. Surprised? Play maximum the hormones Zetsubo Billy. Now it was time for the Kagaya to strike. Kimimaro surprised everyone by drawing 2 bone swords from his shoulders and attacking Lee with swings and stabs. The spandex genin dodged, countered, and finally found a gap to deliver a forceful punch to Kimi's stomach, but the older genin saw this coming and protruded bone from his chest to protect himself. Lee leapt back and started tending to his wounded hand. The strength of those bones must surpass that of steel. Kimimaro was bouncing a little on one foot. "You should give up. This was a horrible match. Up. You can't stand a chance against my Kekkei Genkai." "Never," Lee exclaimed as he hurried forward once more. Astonished by the variety of weapons he could fashion from his bones, Tenten watched from the balcony as Kimimaro fashioned bone spikes on his limbs. When the girl turned around, she saw her sensei wearing a serious expression for the first time. Lee is truly unmatched, so that must be the case. The bone. Enhanced punch to Lee's face was a suckered punch. He was knocked to the ground again by the blow. A spike of bone emerged from Kimimaro's palm. In his typical monotone, Kimimaro stated, "You should stop holding back." Guy exclaimed, "Lee, from the balcony, take them off." Lee wiped blood from his cheek and looked up. Lee exclaimed, "Right?" as he climbed onto the enormous statue of a hand seal and took weights out of his arm warmers. Tamari scoffed as she took in this. Team 7 and 8 were watched with curiosity. Gaara continued to stare at Kimimaro while Konkuro ignored him. "Your mother would love your blood." "Now that feels a lot better," exclaimed Lee as he let the weights fall, causing craters to form in the earth beneath. Nearly everyone on the balcony stared in awe. With that, Sasuke looked at his older brother. Itachi shrugged and asked, "Is it even possible to have those weights on?" Kimimaro appeared to be impressed. His long, forgotten smile started to appear as he said, "Oh, this should be entertaining." When a smile appeared on Kimimaro's face, Orochimaru scowled. When he was healthy, this boy was unstoppable. Now, however, the disease has taken away the majority of his bodily functions. He is able to move because of the sheer force of his spirit. He's grinning now. Kabuto spent 4 months in the hospital after his last smile. Kimimaro gasped in amazement at the speed at which Lee disappeared. He was launched into the air after experiencing an unidentified chin ache. Behind him, Lee emerged. "Does this impress you? How about this, Primary Lotus?" Kimimaro fell to the ground in a heap. Lee appeared somewhat exhausted as he landed on his feet. Everyone watched to see if the game was finished. They were startled when Kimimaro stood up slowly. As Kimi got up and brushed off his trousers, Lee watched with wide eyes. "'Tis a shame," he began. "If it weren't for my Kekkei Genkai, and my disease which makes me feel no pain in most parts of my body, I would be unconscious. Other than that, your taijutsu attack hurts." Lee was taken aback. It had virtually no impact. There was nothing he could do but open the gates. Naruto was pleased with his elder relative's level of Shikatsumiku proficiency. However, this disease Kimimaro mentioned was what worried him. "I see, so that's why nothing works on you. Well then, I'll have to go all out," Lee yelled. With his arms folded, Lee started to open each chakra gate individually. Kimimaro felt a tremendous surge of chakra flowing toward him. Since it's better safe than sorry, he hardened his bones right away. The 5th gate, open. Lee's face flushed, and he had veins protruding from his forehead. His eyes lost their pupils, and his hair stood on end. Lee moved in front of Kimimaro almost before he could respond, delivering a punch to his face that was so strong it sent him tumbling to the ground. When Kimimaro looked up, he saw orange, then the ceiling. Lee launched a barrage of blows too quickly for the Jonin and Sharingan eyes to follow. As Lee landed the final blow, everyone watched. Hidden Lotus. It ended with a forceful blow to Kimi's abdomen. Lee was still in his taijutsu stance after the dust had settled. His hands were broken from repeatedly punching Kimi's diamond. Hard body, and he was too tired to react when a bone wiped grappled around him. What in the? The bowl cut Genin was tossed and sent spinning in the air before he could finish. Out of this dust, Kimimaro exclaimed, "Clematis dance." Vine. A sort of drill was developing on his left arm. Hovering over Lee, Kimimaro threw himself into the air. Clematis Dane. Flower. Lee gasped as he was thrown to the ground after the bone drill hit him in the stomach. Winded, Kimimaro landed. Lee was not conscious. Kimimaro declared, "Proctor, the match is over." Zabuza gave a nod. "The winner is Kimi, not so, F." Fast, everyone gasped when Lee arose, blood streaming to the ground from his gushing torso. Lee. Kimimaro saw the sensei of that child emerge. Guy touched him on the shoulders, and gave Lee a tight hug. He started crying and remarked, "You're a great ninja, Lee." Zabuza let out a sigh. The elder Genin nodded and turned to go when he said, "The winner is Kimimaro." He started to go upstairs after saying, "I have two things to say. 1. Lee will be fine, just fix up those injuries. And 2. Can someone get my pills?" With relief that the match was over, Tenten let out a sigh. She just thought it was becoming too intense. The Hokage was pleased with the strength of the younger generation and watched the match with pride. It would be wise for him to keep up with them. Leaning against the wall was Yokumaru, Shish, Kushina and her relatives. Sandame faced the Lord of Demons. As he smoked from his pipe, he said, "Be glad that his sanity is intact. It's a shame that only the hybrid Kagaya lose the insanity gene." Beginning with, the next match, Zabuza Tenten. V. Hyuga Neji Hinata let out a gasp. One of her cousin's teammates was fighting with him. Hinata was aware of how strong Neji was due to his rage toward the Hyuga, and he won Rookie of the Year as a result of that rage. Concerned, Sasuke witnessed Neji receive the curse seal and take the bite for him at the Forest of Death. Sasuke tapped his own lightly, repressing it in his mind. Tenten's face showed fear and shock. Fear because of the strange hickey on his neck, and shock because she was no match for him. Neji grinned slyly when he saw the matchup. "Are you coming, Tenten? Chan?" As his hot breath rolled down her neck, the girl with the bun had to slow her breathing. She swallowed and went after him. Orochimaru's snake-like hold on Neji's body was palpable to Kimimaro. Neji glared in his direction, causing Kimimaro's curse seal to pulse. The pain made him grunt. The two fighters faced each other. Tenten was shivering uncontrollably from her crush's rapt attention. Neji smiled a little. "What's wrong, Tenten? Chan, I thought you would like a good fight with me." Zabuza gave them both a quick look. The next match, Sento Kaishi. Tenten, still feeling Neji's glare at her, shakily withdrew a scroll. Her body was so difficult to control. Neji grinned. "Tenten. Chan. Maybe you should give up. If don't stop shaking, we can't fight." Tenten's eyes widened and she stopped. "Tenten, relax. You can handle this," she told herself over and over. Her body was still trembling, so it wasn't helping. "Tenten. Chan, do you need a blanket? You can't stop shivering. I'm starting to get disappointed." "Well, I guess since you were just a fangirl." Kimimaro, who was holding the bar, squeezed it until it began to bend as Neji persisted in disparaging her. "Damn it, Tenten." When the girl looked up, she saw Kimimaro gazing at her with his cool green eyes. "Don't listen to him. He's playing mind games with you. You aren't weak. You have the strength to stand and fight. Beat him. You can do it." Everybody was in disbelief at Kimimaro's tantrum. His statement shocked the Kagaya himself. He gave his chest another squeeze. "That sensation is back." Tenten considered his words. Neji tightened his jaw. "Neji," he looked over and saw the girl with the bun stand up gradually. "Sorry to keep you waiting," she said, revealing a bow staff as she opened the scroll she had. "Play Overworld's Endscape." Neji gave a headshake. "You do realize that she ought to have given up, Orochimaru?" Neji assumed a Jiyuken stance and deflected the blows as Tenten charged while spinning her staff. Tenten then revealed some tonfa in another scroll, but Neji again deflected the blows as if they were insignificant. Tenten was pushed back against the wall by Neji's forceful palm strike. The girl clenched her jaw. Combat at close range is strictly forbidden. Her anguish turned into a grin as she retrieved two more scrolls. When she opened it after leaping high into the air, a swarm of ninja.to, shuriken, kunai, and many more were visible. When she unleashed the tools on Neji, she said, "Ninja tool, twin rising dragons." The boy grinned as they all hit him. Neji started spinning around quickly as he said, 8 trigrams. Kaden. The tools deflected the chakra shield created by the high-velocity spin. When the tool rain stopped, a victorious Neji with innumerable weapons stood. Tenten bit her thumb after landing. Long range is also ineffective. Kimimaro noticed that this one-sided argument was making her feel upset. Now is not the time to act foolishly. Tenten gave herself a nod. It's mid-range. Tenten snatched the ninja.to from her foot and threw it at Neji, who stopped it with ease. The girl started to run and jump while gathering weapons and hurling them at Neji. Some of them were able to scrape him, while others just missed. Neji was growing irritated. He didn't have to lose. Neji made the decision to charge ahead, running past Afuma, shuriken and striking Tenten in the chest with his palm. Blood dripped from the girl's mouth and she fell. Neji kicked the girl on his foot while glaring at her. Tenten was thrown against the wall after coughing up blood. With a laugh, Neji strode over and grabbed her by the collar. She was brutally slammed against the wall by Neji. He chose to repeat it, relishing the agony as it hit Tenten's face. The girl with the bun hair coughed up more blood on the floor. With a scowl, Neji tossed her to the ground behind him. When he said, "Get up, you wench. I haven't finished smacking you around," he unintentionally strengthened the stigma. Kimimaro tightened his jaw. She was losing so badly that it was becoming more of a beatdown than a fight. Tenten got up shakily. She grabbed a ninja.to and chased after the Hyuga prodigy, saying, Neji, I won't have you make a fool out of me, not in front of someone who encouraged me to fight you." As Tenten's attack went horribly wrong, Neji burst out laughing. She was allowing her anger to impair her judgment, and now she was paying for it. Neji's curse seal came into play when the girl's attack missed, and he felt a surge of strength and moved behind her. He pulled her wrists and put his foot on her back. Tenten let out a painful grunt and let go of the ninja.to. With a sickening tone in his voice, he said, "You pay much attention to your hands, Tenten-chan. And your arms look so smooth and soft." For her life, the girl whimpered. Neji started pulling Tenten's arms, pulling and pulling until he finally tore them out of their sockets. Tenten screamed in agony. Her spine-tingling scream made everyone on the balcony, in the Hokage's box, and even Zabuza wince. Zabuza had had enough. Neji kept kicking and stepping on Tenten's body while she was unconscious. "Neji, you won already, this match is over." Neji was offended by Zabuza's tone. "What, didn't you say that killing was acceptable?" he screamed. The statement he made left Kimimaro and the Konoha team speechless. Was he going to murder her? "Remember your limits, Neji," Zabuza yelled. Neji nodded and grunted. "The curse seal is moving away." Neji sighed as he observed Tenten's battered body. Kimimaro hurried to Tenten's side with a few others in tow. One of them, Sasuke, sprinted by Neji. Neji mouthed as the two exchanged glances. Next up is Uzumaki. Tenten was turned over and raised by Kimimaro. Tenten's lovely face is now marred by scars and bruises. The girl looked at Kimi's cool green eyes as her chocolate brown eyes slowly opened. Even though she had no chance, this man, whom she hardly knew, went out of his way to encourage her to fight. Kimimaro, she said with a feeble smile. Tenten needed to remain conscious, so he gave her a little shake. He begged Tenten to stay with him and not lose it now. It was the first time in his life that Kimimaro experienced pain and fear. He wanted the feelings to stop because they were unpleasant. She closed her eyes and muttered, "Thanks, for giving me the strength to fight. I have to return the favor." Tenten, Kuso. Damn, Kimimaro got to her feet and removed her wedding gown, and sprinted toward the infirmary's door. She was spotted by one medic. "Hey, let us take," Kimimaro aimed a bone spike at him, silencing him. "Shut it, you. Now take me to Dr. Yakushi." The Hokage whispered something to Yokumaru after that ordeal. As he disappeared into a whirlpool of flames, he said, "I'll get right to it." Neji was standing on the balcony when Kakashi poofed behind him a few moments later. "Yo, you need to come with me." Neji faced him. "What for?" Kakashi gestured with his hand. Neji reluctantly nodded, saying, "Nothing important, now just come on." Zabuza let out another sigh. Next match, the eyes of all widened. Sasuke had flashbacks to his exam. Related nightmare, and Itachi gasped. "This is turning into my nightmare." In denial, Naruto shook his head. "I must be reading that thing wrong." The Desert Gaara versus Haruno Sakura. When Sakura saw who she had to battle, she was too stunned to move. Gaara is bad news, and she knows it. She still had to fight, though, to show everyone that she was more than just a helpless fangirl. She turned to see her opponent waiting for her to descend from the arena floor. Sakura swallowed, then trailed behind until Sasuke touched her shoulder. Surprised, Sakura glanced over her shoulder. "Sasuke-kun," she had inquired. Sasuke's skin tone was lighter than usual. "Sakura, stay safe, please. Remember that you can give up the match before it gets serious. Just don't fight too hard," he inquired. Sakura was concerned because she had never witnessed Sasuke-kun in such distress. Naruto also approached her. "Sakura, do the best you can. This isn't a battle you should die over. Make us proud." Sakura nodded, looking down. She dashed down to the arena, past Naruto. Gaara had his arms crossed and a permanent frown on his face as Zabuza turned to face the fighters. Sakura was jittery and anxious. "You know the rules, Sento Kaishi." Sakura chose to take the initiative and drew a kunai in a flash before leaping back. "We'll see what he can accomplish." When Sakura threw her kunai at Gaara, he was amazed to see sand come out of his gourd and block it. Gaara gave her a disinterested look. "Is that all, Kadaranai, worthless?" His voice made Sakura shiver. It sounded unnatural and eerie. The Pinkette thought of a plan and shook off the negative thoughts. "I have the thing. He must be using chakra to control the sand." Some were taken aback by Sakura's subsequent actions, particularly Ino, when she produced chakra scalpels. The genin with the pink hair grinned at the look of shock on everyone's faces. "Play TM Revolutions, Resonance." As she rushed forward, she yelled, "Let's dance," to the red-headed person. Gaara made hand gestures in compliance. Sakura used her medical training to dodge and deflect the attacks with her chakra scalpels as she watched in awe as sand flew out of his gourd and was ready to kill. Gaara gradually became agitated and caused the sand to come in faster. Sakura was forced to defend herself and avoid the sand attacks as a result. The shinobi on the balcony watched in awe as Sakura skillfully sidestepped the blows. After training with the good Dr. Yakushi, Itachi leaned back and nodded in agreement. The Pinkette appeared to be dancing rather than dodging, and Sasuke was enthralled. Sasuke was filled with pride and was genuinely impressed by Sakura's development. Ino watched in jealousy. It appears that the distance between them has widened once more, in Sakura's favor. Since Ino was a member of a shinobi clan and Sakura was merely a civilian, Ino was obviously stronger. However, now, "I feel like you're abandoning me, Sakura." Gradually, Sakura approached Gaara and fled. "Not so fast," he exclaimed, taking some of the sand from the ground and turning it into senbon. They then launched themselves at Sakura at high speeds, hitting the Pinkette in the back. Sakura gave a painful grunt. "Don't stress over it, it's just a wound of flesh." Sakura made another scalpel and gave Gaara a horizontal slash in response to her inner half's cries. Gaara felt the pain in his legs, but there was no physical harm. "I'm in pain." Sakura ignored Gaara's cries of agony as she began hitting him in different parts of his body, crippling his limbs. Hoping that his disabled form would prevent the sand shield from working, Sakura leapt back and threw senbon at his neck. When the sand shield materialized and blocked it, Sakura's eyes widened. "How? However, I disabled him," she pondered. Now that this girl had hurt Gaara, Temari and Kankuro were growing anxious on the stands. She wouldn't survive. Returning to the battle, Sakura watched helplessly as Gaara raised his head, clearly furious. The sand surrounding the arena and the rest in Gaara's gourd began to act independently, forming senbon and aiming at Sakura. "You hurt me. Mother wants your blood now," I said. Sakura fled in a panic, but she had to dodge and cut the sand because there were hundreds or even thousands of sand senbon. However, she wasn't as fortunate when she was scraped and cut by some of the senbon. A sand senbon stabbed Sakura's leg as she faltered for a moment. "Sakura!" yelled Sasuke. "She can't keep avoiding forever, this was getting out of hand." The Uchiha turned to his elder brother and said, "Sasuke, have faith in Sakura, you hear me? She won't give up so easily." Gaara felt his arms again while Sakura was evading. By grabbing Sakura by her injured leg and throwing her against the wall, he began to regain control over the sand. As a result, the Pinkette's leg's senbon penetrated it further. Sakura fell to the ground, spit up blood, and gave Gaara a fierce look. Sakura clenched her leg in agony as the redhead caused the sand in her leg to spike outward. Sakura swore, dug into her wound, and removed the sand. As she did so, Gaara threw a pillar of sand at her. The girl was pinned against the wall as a result of her slow reaction. Sakura was thrown to the ground as the pillar changed into a fist. Sakura was struck in the stomach by another pillar of sand, and everyone watched in awe as she stood and charged forward with her scalpels. She gasped as the air left her lungs. Sakura grabbed the pillar of sand and pushed her body away from it after opening one eye and glaring at the sand genin. "My genjutsu, it's time to use it," she yelled as she rushed through hand seals. Genjutsu. Infinite darkness. A pitch. Black gloom enveloped the entire arena. Hiruzen looked up in the Hokage box, impressed. Sakura easily walked up to Gaara and punched him after noticing in the darkness that the sand was unsure where to go. He was thrown to the ground after the sand shield failed to keep him safe. The pinkhead stabbed him in the neck with a senbon and combo. Ed him with the chakra scalpels. She hit Gaara where he would be unconscious after learning about human anatomy from Kabuto. Sakura collapsed to her knees after canceling the jutsu. She cursed herself for not having enough chakra because she was low on it. She glanced at Gaara's face and thought, crack. Sakura's body broke into sand, and his eyes grew wide. A sand clone? Sakura was thrown into the air when the sand whip struck her across the face without her noticing. The whip encircled Sakura's neck and began strangling her. Sakura felt his spine tingle from the crazy expression in Gaara's eyes. Gaara licked his lips and tightened his hold. Fearing for her life, Sakura attempted to escape but was stopped by two more whips. Gaara held his hand up in the air, formed a gigantic senbon, and released it. Everyone watched as the sand senbon pierced Sakura, luckily missing nothing important. As the blood trickled down the senbon, Sakura's eyes grew wide. With a smile, the sand genin forced the senbon through her entire body. Sakura let out a cry of agony as the senbon passed directly through her. Sakura's head bobbed down as Team 7 looked on. His dream was coming true, and Sasuke was paralyzed. Itachi merely watched with an unreadable expression while Naruto squeezed the railing. Sakura's body hit the ground with a sickening thud as Gaara released the sand whips. Looking at the pool of blood that was forming, the redhead smiled crazily. However, as Sakura rose from the ground, Gaara's smile vanished. Through the hole in her chest, you could see everything. Sakura kept gasping and wheezing. "I won't give up," she exclaimed while creating another chakra scalpel. Sasuke was shouting in desperation up on the balcony. "Sakura, don't do this. You're too hurt to fight. Give up." Itachi yelled, "Sasuke, would you stop?" "But, Itachi, can't you see why Sakura's fighting so hard?" he inquired. Sakura was struck by another sand wave as Sasuke watched. He gave a headshake. Sasuke turned to his older brother in surprise and said, "She's fighting for you." "But why? She loves you, you idiot. And she wants to show you that she isn't the same weak fangirl she once was. And this is her way of doing it." When Sasuke turned around, he saw Sakura clutching the hole in her chest while panting on the ground. She got back to her feet, wiping the perspiration from her brow. Sasuke questioned his brother, "Does she have to do it this way?" Itachi gave a headshake. "When you kissed Haku, I saw the devastated look on her face. She wants to show you that she can be strong as well. She wants to be the one that will get you." Sasuke cast his gaze to the floor. "Sakura, I thought you only saw me as an ideal, but I had no idea you felt this way. But now I realize." Sasuke shouted, "Sakura, you can do it. You can win this." Naruto exclaimed as well, "Right, there's still a chance." Lee yelled, "Show me the flames of your youth," after recovering. Ino shouted, "Give him a 16-hit combo." Itachi yelled, "Show him the results of your training." "I know you can do it, Sakura-chan." Sakura glanced up at all of the Genin and Jonin-sensei, but she focused most on Kabuto, who was grinning at her from the exit. "Everyone." She held out her right hand and let a tear slip out. She placed her other hand over her right and widened the chakra scalpel that had formed. Sakura let out a battle cry and charged forward. Gaara was not easily defeated. Sakura was struck by the volleys of sand he threw at her, but she chose to ignore the pain and slashed at him. "It's over," she cried as she cut him, breaking his legs and causing internal harm before Gaara collapsed to the ground. Sakura grinned and collapsed as well. However, Gaara regained his composure and turned to face Sakura. Sakura's form was encircled by crawling sand. The eyes of the pinkhead grew wide. Everyone's eyes widened as Gaara whispered, "Sand coffin," as the girl was covered in sand. Only Sakura's head was visible as she was lifted into the air, the sand squeezing her. Sakura paused to observe everyone in her line of sight. She looked over at Sasuke-kun. As Sasuke gazed at her, tears began to well up in his Sharingan eyes. After what seemed like an eternity of staring at one another, Sakura gave him a charming smile. "I cherish you." Sand burial. The sand hit Gaara's palm as he squeezed it. Sakura's crushed form was visible in the sand as blood and sand spattered the ground and a larger mass of bloody sand fell to the ground, leaving Sasuke with a look of sheer terror. Zabuza approached her without saying anything. Gaara is the winner, barely alive. Jumping over the railing, Sasuke did so. Hang on, Sakura. Sasuke hurried past Gaara, and after exchanging glances, the Uchiha returned his attention to Sakura's bloody mound. Sakura gazed dead-eyed at Sasuke's feet. She thought, I failed you, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke knelt down and put one hand on her heart while holding her head up. Her heart beat more slowly, and he could feel it. With tears welling up in his Sharingan eyes, he cried out in desperation, Sakura, Sakura, don't die. I lost too much already. The Konoha teams were circling him. Sasuke noticed. Itachi gave his younger brother a serious glance. The pinkhead gave him a feeble smile. She muttered, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to follow with that. The more Sakura's heartbeat slowed, the faster Sasuke's heartbeat. Sasuke screamed, don't say that, you're gonna be okay. Medic. Medic. But no medical personnel showed up. Haku performed a diagnostic jutsu on the girl while kneeling beside Sasuke. She muttered to him, Sasuke-kun, I'm sorry but I won't be able to stabilize her with my limited medical abilities, and despised her inability to assist. Sasuke's gaze expanded. Sasuke-kun, Uchiha, who had raven hair, turned to face Sakura. He lowered his head and said, Sakura, you're going to be fine. Remember, we're Team 7, forever. They deserved this time together, so Naruto just watched. She whispered, Sasuke, please kiss me just once. With the last of her strength, she placed a hand on his cheek and pressed her lips to his as Sasuke's eyes widened once more and he complied by leaning closer. As he kissed her back, Sasuke's eyes were filled with tears. Sakura abruptly withdrew and covered Sasuke's hand. With a faint smile on her face as her heart stopped beating and her breath stopped, she whispered, I love you, Sasuke-kun, as she closed her eyes for the last time. Sakura Haruno has passed away. Sasuke didn't say anything. Right up until he cried out in pain. Sasuke screamed, Sakura, and slammed his fist to the floor. Naruto averted his gaze, his eyes threatening to well up with tears. Team 7, forever. Itachi looked down. Sakura had her entire ninja career ahead of her, and he had never had someone so young die under his tutelage. Why is this so difficult? Damn it. His eyes were watering as he thought. During the intense moment when Kiba put his arms around her in an embrace, Ino was sobbing on his shoulder. Sasuke had briefly stopped striking the ground with his fist when Haku placed a hand on his shoulder. Sasuke raised his gaze to her, but their gazes did not lock. Rather, Haku embraced Sasuke, who sobbed into her chest. Everyone but Sasuke turned to watch Yokumaru emerge in a whirl of flames. Naruto said, Dad. The fox from Demon clenched his jaw. His voice was hushed. I was too late. Sakura was about to receive a special seal from Yokumaru that would have protected her from Gaara's battle, but now. Haku held on to Sasuke as he slowly got to his feet. Gaara, he whispered, his face out of sight. Gaara arched an imaginary eyebrow. He said from the balcony, what? Everyone gasped when Sasuke got up and glared at Gaara after kneeling down and grabbing a fistful of blood off the ground. Instead of the typical 3 tomo, Sasuke's eyes now resemble a red atom with a black rim. With the curse seal twitching, he yelled, I'll make you pay with blood. Sasuke twitched. The seal had to be suppressed. HMPH, you think you can defeat me? I'll just kill you just like the pink-haired one. Shut up. The Uchiha quickly retorted. He calmed down a little and said, you didn't have to kill her. Sakura didn't deserve to die like this. She never deserved to die. When Itachi approached Sasuke and placed a hand on his shoulder, the boy with the raven hair met his brother's gaze. I'll train you so you'll be able to make him pay, and I'll help train you with those new eyes of yours, he replied. With a nod, Sasuke switched off his Mangekyo Sharingan. He gestured to his teammate's body and whispered, let's take Sakura out of here. Sakura was covered with a white sheet and her body was spread out on a table. Thinking it was safe, a silent figure emerged from the shadows, his eyes darting around for any potential trap. Sakura's hair was visible when Kabuto Yakushi raised the sheet. He dared not look any further. As he removed a lock of hair from her head, he remarked, I won't let you go so easily. Since the root was attached, he was lucky. Kabuto tucked it away, put her hair back up, and disappeared. An hour later, Naruto vs. Kiba, the final match, began. Sento Kaishi. Naruto and Kiba exchanged scowls. Yo Naruto, I feel your pain, sorta. He replied. I've never seen my dad since he left us when I was a child. I assume Kiba was unaware of the truth. So in a way, I know what it is like to lose someone. Naruto gave a headshake. He slipped into a taijutsu stance and asked, are you going to fight or are you going to babble? Kiba made a hand seal and smiled. You got it, man-beast clone. Akamaru arfed and changed into Kiba in a puff of smoke. Naruto smiled. Impressive, but can you stand up to my shadow clone jutsu? Kiba and Akamaru gazed at each of the 5 Narutos that emerged in a puff of smoke. Ha! Bunshin, they're just dumb. They're not that hardy. Kiba fixed the real Naruto with his nose and eyes. Naruto yelled to his clones, let's go. They all began mingling with one another in an attempt to mislead Kiba, the circle, and Kunai. Naruto yelled, Kiba, you're surrounded. Give up. Kiba gave a fierce smile. The real Naruto made hand seals as Kiba and Akamaru leapt and spun quickly, forming 2 swirling drills that smashed through the clones. I don't think so, fang over fang. Futon. Hurricane Fist. Naruto threw his fist back and punched, causing a strong gust of wind to collide with Kiba's fangs. The 2 attacks fought for control until Kiba's jutsu was overpowered by the Hurricane Fist. After flipping and landing on his feet, Kiba turned to see Akamaru, who was being held aloft by Naruto's shadow clone, with a kunai to his throat. The dog boy was approached by the real Naruto. One wrong move and Akamaru will be short ahead, so what will it be? He asked. Kiba tightened his jaw. Disappointed that he had lost to his opponent, he reluctantly said, don't hurt Akamaru, I give up. Zabuza gave a headshake. Shusa, Naruto grinned, but it was a bittersweet grin. Haku came down to congratulate him, along with Hinata and the remainder of his team. Kiba sighed as he watched Naruto and Hinata interact. Just give it up, will you? Ino was looking down at the dog boy when he looked up. He asked, why should I? Ino watched as the couple headed upstairs. Because they're meant for each other. I know you know that, too. Ino laughed and Kiba grunted. Come on, Kibble. Get your dog and come on. Ino laughed a little more and hurried upstairs, saying, fine, wait, Kibble. Okay, in the next month we will have our final portion of the exams. The actual tournament. Here foreign dignitaries will be here to see the strength of those who made it. Now, draw a number from this box. Sasuke said, 3. Hinata said, 1. 5, shouted Naruto. Kimimaro said, 6. Shino said, 9, in his monotone as usual. Kakashi drew for Neji, who wasn't present at the time, and said, 2. Shikamaru said, 7. Kankuro said, 10. Tamari said, 8. Gaara said, 4, okay, so that means the tournament pairs will be as follows. Neji vs Hinata, Gaara vs Sasuke, Kimimaro vs Naruto. Tamari vs Shikamaru. Kankuro vs Shino. As he disappeared into smoke, Zabuza said, I'll see you all next month, train hard. A shattered Team 7 was the result of the preliminary aftermath. That week, Sakura's funeral took place. Sakura's dedication to the earth caused the gods to cry raindrops. Sasuke met Sakura's mother at that point. The mother of Akai Haruno resembled Sakura exactly. When Sasuke found out she was expecting her second child, he asked if he could be the one to teach her the ninja way. Her mother gave a nod and obeyed. She is happy that her future child will have a qualified instructor. The following morning, a man entered Konoha with long, spiky white hair tied in a ponytail. He chuckled twistedly, thinking, I'm going to do some research after I meet the old man. Deidara returned to his chamber. I didn't help, but he had just gone for a walk to get rid of the uneasy feeling in his stomach. He asked himself, why do I feel like something big is going to happen? Itachi, Sasuke, and Yokomaru were seated in front of the desk in Sarutobi's office. Yokomaru was standing, though. Yokomaru said, all right, let's get started. Show me the Sharingan. With a nod, Sasuke sealed his hand and looked into the Mangekyo Sharingan. You see? It's the most unusual one I've ever seen. Itachi replied. I saw what Madara, Izuna, and Kakashi's look like, but this one. Sandaime pulled a drag from his cigarette. Yokomaru, what do you deduct? The Kyuubi nodded after giving it a careful examination. Sasuke nodded, closed his eyes, and opened them to show his normal onyx black eyes. Okay, turn it off. Yokomaru said, Sasuke, please leave the room. We adults need to talk. The boy nodded silently and walked away, Once they were certain he was gone, Yokumaru raised his voice. I've never seen a Mangekyo Sharingan like that in almost 200 years, since the first Uchiha. Itachi's gaze expanded. The Uchiha clan was founded by Raijin Uchiha, who is said to have vanquished the Kyuubi and acquired the Mangekyo 200 years ago. Since Raijin Sama? What are those idiots teaching you? Yokumaru shook his head. I had been best friends with Raijin. D09. Jutsu flashback. An army of enemy ninja and samurai surrounded two men. The taller of the two had long, shaggy red hair and demonic red eyes. He was wearing a blood-red kimono, which was possibly stained with his enemy's blood, but no one knows. The shorter man, approximately 5 feet 9, had long, spiky black hair and onyx black eyes. He was wearing samurai armor, which included 3 katana and uchiwa strapped to his waist. Kyuubi. Sama, if we make it out of this in one piece, I'll promise not to tell Nibi about you kissing the Shukaku. Raijin replied with a smirk. You're a jerk. I assumed you wouldn't mention that. The brain dead Sanbi accidentally shoved the Kyuubi into Shukaku, causing them to kiss. If the Nibi found out, she would tell every demon in the land about it. So I suppose we should stop talking and start fighting? Raijin inquired. Fine. Jutsu flashback. Kai, Raijin was unique. The 9 Biju were good friends with him, however, one day. D09. Jutsu flashback. You're a jerk. Raijin yelled as he cut the attacker in half. After putting his sword away, he rushed to the location of his beloved, who was severely injured, with several weapons protruding from her and a wound across her chest. Hold on, my dear. As he extracted the weapons from her, he said. Apparently, they attacked him so a feudal lord could stall him so he could kill Raijin. When the Kyuubi asked why, he replied that it was because the man took what was important to them, and he went to help Raijin. The Kyuubi was running towards Raijin's house, and he couldn't believe that Shukaku and Nibi would try to kill him. He struggled against them because of their fire and wind elements, but managed to get rid of them in time, he hoped. It was extremely silent when the Kyuubi arrived. When the coast was clear, he changed into his human form and saw Raijin kneeling and gazing at his wife's body. I'm too late, Kyuubi muttered as he approached Raijin. Raijin, why did this have to happen? He grumbled. She had just given birth to my only daughter, why? Since Raijin was only 17 years old, Kyuubi was certain that he would find love again, so he just watched him cry quietly over the loss of his love. With tears still in his eyes, the man said, Raijin, you don't want this to happen again, do you? Raijin quickly shook his head and said, then what I'm about to give you will help prevent this. The Kyuubi covered Raijin's eyes with his right hand and sealed them with his left, causing him to grunt in agony as his eyes began to burn. Raijin blinked a few times as the Kyuubi released his eyes, then gazed at his reflection in the blood, saying, my eyes. His eyes now resembled a 4-pronged spiral, with the outside being black and the spiral itself being red. It is the Mangekyo Sharingan, the ideal form of the Sharingan. What I gave you, began the Kyuubi. This will give you excellent genjutsu skills while maintaining the fundamentals of a typical Sharingan. The passing of a loved one is the only way to acquire this form of the Sharingan. It is a tool that will assist you in safeguarding the people you care about. Be cautious, though, because there is another way to obtain it that will cause blindness every time you use it. Raijin's gaze widened. I see, but you don't have to worry, since I'm the only one with the Sharingan in the first place. Who said you were or will be the only one? The Kyuubi grinned. Because the Sharingan is genetic, both your children and your daughter will inherit it. With tears in her eyes, Raijin said, thank you, Kyuubi. Sama. I swear to you, these eyes will be used for protection rather than destruction. Jutsu flashback. Kai. As he concluded his story, Yokumaru remarked, too bad the greed of humankind kept him from following that promise. Itachi's eyes grew wide. I see, so I'll also become blind? Did he ask? We have a lot of new medical advancements, better than the ones during the time of Madara Uchiha and Raijin Uchiha. Yokumaru grinned. I predict that if you don't get medical help within 72 hours, the blindness effects will be irreversible. That's good to hear, Itachi said with a slight smile. Let's move on to Sasuke's training now. Yes, he will be fighting 2 battles at once, Sarutobi said, his expression growing serious. Gaara's and the conflict with the curse seal of Orochimaru. Hinata and Ayame worked together to prepare the bowls of ramen that Naruto and Hinata were sharing at the Uzumaki residence. Your cooking skills are amazing. One day, you'll make a fantastic wife, he said. Naruto.kun. I think you should go now, you have to find that guy, remember? Ayame said, laughing as Hinata's face flushed. Naruto leapt from his chair and exclaimed, "Oh, that's correct. I need to locate this man who is meant to be my godfather, Hina-chan." "Really?" Hinata asked. She never heard Naruto mention his godfather before. "Who is it?" Ayame put her arm around Hinata as the indigo-haired girl tilted her head in bewilderment. Naruto shrugged and said, "I don't know, but my dad said when I see him, he'll make a funny dance." "You ought to be heading out right now, Naruto-kun. To unwind, Hinata and I are heading to the hot springs. Correct, Hinata?" "All right, then, have fun." Naruto nodded as Hinata glanced at the older girl and nodded. As he left through the door, he said. After searching for an hour and a half, Naruto put his head down in defeat. He couldn't find a guy performing a humorous dance anywhere. "Where in the world is that guy?" Naruto shouted. He knew he should have asked his father more info on him, but no. With his feet moving automatically, Naruto allowed his thoughts to wander. He thought about Gaara and Sasuke. "You'll pay for it. With blood." A spectral fear gripped Naruto. What if Sasuke also perished? If he lost his brother, he couldn't handle it. No, he needed to believe that he would prevail and hold Sakura's murderer accountable. Somewhere in the hot springs, Hinata and Ayame were discussing their respective men in a girl conversation. As she gazed up at the sky, Ayame lamented, "I feel like I've been ignored. Itachi has been training like crazy ever since he got that new katana." Ayame-chan, you shouldn't be sad. Itachi-kun still loves you, it's just that he's a shinobi. And a shinobi's duty comes first sometimes. That's the same with me and Naruto-kun. Until now, I hardly got to see him. Since Itachi is a ninja, I suppose I should not have expected him to be so romantic, but Ayame seemed to understand. What about Haku and Sasuke? Ever since Sakura's death, Sasuke-kun has been locked up in his room. The only time he left was to help out Akai-san. Ayame inquired. Hinata gazed sorrowfully at the water. Haku has been upset that Sasuke-kun doesn't talk to her anymore. I wish I could do something. Ayame had a thought. Maybe we can. Jiraiya of the Sannin was looking through the women's side of the bath outside the hot spring, laughing twistedly at the two women sitting on the ledge in front of him, both of them wearing wet towels. Can you guess who? When Naruto heard some perverts laughing, he let his feet lead him out of the hot spring. Naruto looked through a peephole and saw a man in red giggling strangely. "Who the?" he asked. "That man is spying on the women in the hot spring." Naruto's eyes widened. And not just any women, Ayame and Hinata. The man dropped his notes as Naruto hurried up to him and decked him across the head. Jiraiya scowled at the blonde and rubbed his head. Jiraiya demanded, "What the hell is wrong with you, kid? Don't you know who I am?" "I don't give a flying fuck who you are. Don't be peeping in the women's hot spring while Hinata and Ayame are in there, you pervert." Ayame and Hinata, on the other hand, had menacing sparkles in their eyes. Later, they would have to give Naruto thanks. Live bait was just caught. Jiraiya looked closely at the child in front of him. He was exactly like Minato. "That's it, Minato, you're so dead," Jiraiya said. "Naturally, remove the whiskers and the dots on his forehead." "Wait a sec. Are you, Naruto?" Naruto retreated a step. "Who wants to know?" Jiraiya then conjured up a toad and began a humorous dance. "I'm the great toad sage, disciple of the third Hokage, teacher of the fourth Hokage, master of the sage arts, Jiraiya," he yelled. Naruto's gaze expanded. "A humorous dance?" Gaping, Naruto gestured toward him. "You're my godfather." Jiraiya gave him a sly smile. "Ah, you know the truth about your heritage, so you must have seeded me out so you can learn your dad's prized jutsu Well, you've come to the right super pervert?" Naruto's surprise gave way to a smile. "Repeat that please?" "I said you've come to the right super pervert." Naruto let out a whistle. "You hear that, ladies? He's a super pervert." Jiraiya stared and slowly turned around to see several women, all of whom were barely dressed in towels, brandishing various weapons. Halfway down the street, the toad sage turned to see Naruto. He also adopted Kushina's style. "Get him." As far as a megacure, Jiraiya's girlish scream could be heard. In a megacure, a girly scream woke Pain, who turned to see Konan standing there on his left. "Konan? You hear that?" That sounded strangely like Jiraiya. "Sensei." Konan gave a headshake. "Who knows, but anyway, Madara wants to see you." On this particularly cool night, with gray clouds, a number of people were spotted at a particular Konoha gravestone. Except for two individuals, A muscular man with bandages around his lower face and a violet-haired woman with black eyes. The majority of the people were wearing animal masks that concealed their depressed faces. Normally, Yugao Azuki would kill Zabuza politely at any time, but now that he was a leaf ninja, things were different. As Yugao read the name on the gravestone, she sighed shakily. Hayate Gecko. When the women in front of him placed the man's sword beside his grave, Zabuza shook his head. They wouldn't have sent Hayate alone if they had known he was facing a Sanjonin and the man they think is Orochimaru. The purple-haired woman looked up at Yugao and gave him a small nod as the former mist ninja placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. She took one final glance at her boyfriend's grave. I swear, I'll avenge you someday. Count on it. Naruto woke up early because he was going to start training today. He looked up at the top bunk and saw Sasuke gone, and the blonde container sighed. Since Sakura's passing, Sasuke has been depressed. Naruto gave a headshake. I shouldn't interfere with it. Naruto turned to face her after hearing some voices downstairs, saying, he needs to get out of this on his own. When Jiraiya arrived at the Uzumaki residence, he spoke with Yokomaru about a few things. When he knocked on the door, the demon did indeed answer. Jiraiya sat down in the kitchen after the red-haired Jonin motioned the toad sage inside, saying, Jiraiya? Naruto isn't even awake yet. But still, come in. Jiraiya glanced around the house and saw that his stoic expression had not changed. The middle-aged pervert grinned a little when he saw a picture of his godson with brain freeze, the two Uchiha boys laughing, and some pictures of the extended family scattered across various tables. From what he could see, the place was reasonably clean. Perhaps it was better for him to be with Yokomaru. Jiraiya frowned again. How could he be godfathered by his own student and then give his son to the Kyuubi, of all people? He hasn't moved on from it yet. Yokomaru carried a mug of coffee and strode into the kitchen. The demon remarked mockingly, it doesn't seem like you're here for just tea and crumpets. Jiraiya folded his arms and shut his eyes. I still haven't forgiven you for taking Naruto from me. The fox demon let out a sigh. Yokomaru never expressed it, but he missed his cub and mate terribly. I knew it. Look, with my abilities, Minato knew for Naruto to have a normal life, it was best if I raised him. And it worked out well considering I never had the chance to be a father before. He had never been so furious, and as a result, Jiraiya yelled, but it's because of you, Minato died. The middle-aged Sennin's shout caused some of his suppressed feelings to surface. He had allowed them to fester for too long. The Kyuubi's display of regret turned Jiraiya off, and I will regret it every second for the rest of my immortal life. Kyuubi and remorseful should never be used together, he agreed, to that extent. Jiraiya's expression softened from stoicism. Was the kid really happy? Yokomaru grinned fiercely. You got that right. Naruto is like a ray of light that possibly saved a Hyuga heiress, and both surviving Uchihas from the darkness they were drifting into. Think about it. If Naruto left with you, Sasuke would be some emo fago, Itachi would have left the village, mentally disturbed, and Hinata would be some meek, shy, girl who has a stuttering problem. Yokomaru's descriptions caused the Toad Sannin to laugh heartily. You may be right. Who knew Naruto was such a miracle worker? The miracle worker strode down the stairs, taking that as his cue. Naruto grinned toothily and said, wow, really? Who knew you thought so highly of me, pervy sage? The fact that the boy was still in his pajamas suggests that he was surprised by Jiraiya's early arrival. The pervy sage, meanwhile, scowled. Forget what I said. You're nothing but an annoying brat. In mock surprise, Naruto let out a gasp. Gasp? I am not an annoying brat. Right, Dad? Yokomaru gave a lazy shrug. I dunno, kid. I'll have to agree with pervy sage on this one. Jiraiya let out a moan. Jiraiya rubbed his head. Those two would kill him with their sarcasm. The blonde boy cheered and ran up the stairs, saying, okay, enough of that. Naruto, get ready, we're starting your training. Shortly after that, Itachi and Ayame entered. The Uchiha bowed. The ramen girl bowed as well, saying, it's not every day Jiraiya the Sannin visits us. I'm honored. Jiraiya was always regarded with great respect due to his status as one of the legendary Sannin. Jiraiya dismissed it with a wave. Itachi nodded and Ayame blushed slightly as he said, you don't need to bow to me, it makes me feel old. So, where are you two going? You guys are fully dressed and Itachi you have your katana with you, Yokomaru responded. I'm going to train, and Ayame wants to watch. Apparently she wants to get out more, Itachi responded. Ayame gave a nod. Yeah, it doesn't do a person good if they stay cooped up in a house all day. And besides, I hardly ever watch you guys in action, she grinned. Yokomaru made a hand gesture. The couple nodded and went off to locate an empty training field. Naruto descended shortly after. Do what you want, have fun. Pervy Sage rose from his chair. Naruto smiled and hurried out the door, asking, okay, shall we go? Hinata smiled when she woke up. She will be training alongside her sister, Hanabi, and her father today. If the girl with the midnight hair was going to defeat Neji and make Naruto-kun proud of her, she truly needed the training. Hinata blushed. The mere thought of Naruto made her heart skip a beat. Since she was 13, she has struggled with this, and to make matters worse, her thoughts have been betraying her the most. Mischievous methods. The door opened before her thoughts could begin their betrayal. With her typical childlike serious expression, Hanabi stood at the door. Hinata inherited their late mother, while Hanabi inherited their father. The younger sister put a lot of effort into earning the respect of the Hyuga clan and was very serious. In contrast, the elder sister was shy, kind, and unaffected by the clan's expectations, unlike in the past. Hinata smiled at her sister. Hello there, Hanabi-chan. I'll be dressed in a few. Hanabi simply closed the door after nodding. With a sigh, her older sister expressed her wish that Hanabi would not possess the hardened Hyuga personality. However, because she was not raised with her mother, she turned to her father for guidance. Hinata hurried into her personal bath and changed into her clothes afterward. Her father and Hanabi were waiting for her when she arrived at the training grounds of the main branch. As his oldest child approached them, Heishi Hyuga turned to look. About time. To get things started, I want you to spar with Hanabi. I want to see how much you two developed over the past month. Hinata let out a sigh to herself. She detested the fact that her father forced her to spar with Hanabi. The younger sister was infuriated because Hinata was simply too strong for her to defeat. As the two of them assumed the typical female Jiyuken stance, Heishi glanced at them. Now begin. Hanabi thrust her palm at Hinata, activating her Byakugan. The older girl retaliated by parrying. Using a sweep. The feet move, Hanabi stumbled and ran forward. Hinata deftly sidestepped it and responded appropriately. After falling to the ground, the younger sister immediately stood up. Hanabi fixed her stance and asked, Hinata, why aren't you using your Byakugan? Am I that weak to you? Heishi was curious. Without using the Byakugan, his oldest child was able to dodge everything that her younger sister threw at her. Hinata gave a headshake. Because I might hurt you. Hanabi was enraged and charged blindly, attempting to hit what she could see of her older sister's tenketsu with volleys of Jiyuken strikes. Hinata leapt back when Hanabi finally struck one. Hanabi grinned triumphantly as the girl's left hand went numb. You're the one who's going to get hurt if you don't activate your Byakugan. Hanabi laughed. The girl with the indigo hair scowled at her younger sister and shook off her numbness. Hinata let out a sigh and used her Byakugan without using any hand seals. When Hanabi saw this, she gasped, and Heishi appeared impressed. His oldest daughter has made great progress since she was a timid youngster. The younger sister attempted to block the palm strikes that Hinata was throwing at her, but ultimately, Hinata defeated her. Hanabi's tenketsu were rendered ineffective when the elder sister struck two of them, one in her arm and one in the other. After turning off her Byakugan, Hinata turned to face Hanabi. It's over, Hanabi-chan. You can't move your arms for a while. After gritting her teeth, the younger sibling let out a dejected sigh. His eldest daughter caught Hiashi's attention. The Hyuga clan head glanced at his youngest daughter as Hinata bowed and departed, saying, You did well, Hinata. You may go about the town, but I expect you to be back before sunset. You have more training ahead of you. Hanabi, you let your anger get the best of you. If you want to be clan head, you must control that temper. Hanabi gave a headshake. It's not fair. How did Hinata get to be so strong? She's so gentle and peace-loving. I don't understand. The man had a slight smile on his face as Heishi watched Hinata leave. It's because of that and more. Hinata wanted to prove to the clan that even one such as her can be a great ninja, and heiress to the Hyuga clan. She also has the support of her closest friends to spur her along. Intrigued, the young girl said, You mean the Uzumaki and the Uchiha? What do they have to do with it? Hinata has very strong feelings for the Uzumaki, and as such, she works hard in order to be as strong as him, so she won't pass off as weak. Along with the Uzumaki, the Uchiha was also Hinata's first friends in the Ninja Academy. Heishi responded. Hanabi appeared perplexed. That's not what Neji Nissan said. He says that Hinata's weak because she lets her bonds of friendship hinder her to become the strongest she can be, and because of that, the Hyuga clan will perish. Neji said that. I see. Neji's mental state has fluctuated since obtaining the curse seal, and Kakashi's seal appears to be effective, but only time will tell. The clan head inquired, and where might Neji be? Hanabi's honest response was, I don't know. I haven't seen him all day. The girl hasn't seen Neji since waking up early this morning. Heishi gave a nod and released it. Hanabi sighed and walked away, saying, now you go and take a break, to Hanabi. Sasuke had just finished doing some housework for Sakura's mother, and it was already past noon at the Haruno residence. Akai gave him a smile. Thanks, Sasuke. You can go now. Sasuke turned to face her. You sure? If you want I can. Don't you have training to get to anyways, Sasuke? After pausing, the youthful Uchiha nodded. I guess. Well then, I guess I'll. The door suddenly flew open, slamming into the wall. Fearfully, Akai grabbed Sasuke as the boy became agitated and used his Sharingan. A man with green eyes and black hair entered the house. He was obviously intoxicated and furious. In fact, he was carrying a bottle of whiskey. The man sneered as he glanced at Akai. Well, can't get a man so you go after little kids? You're more pathetic than I thought, Akai. The expectant mother scowled. Sasuke turned to face Akai and asked for some clarification. Tatsuya, I told you to never come back. Why are you here? He said. The young Uchiha looked at him in surprise and said, Tatsuya is the father of this child and the father of my estranged husband Sakura. Tatsuya had a hiccup. I came here to see if that rumor of Sakura dying was true. Looks like it since ya got that there Uchiha with you. Meh, serves that bitch right. This is what she gets for playing ninja. Sasuke was furious. Shut up. You don't know anything. Now leave, before I make you. The boy invoked his Mangekyo Sharingan without realizing it. That chilled Akai to the bone, with the intent to kill. Tatsuya swallowed as icy perspiration trickled down his cheeks. After saying, oh, looks like it's a time for me to leave. Bye, he took off running. After calming down, Sasuke turned off his Sharingan. Akai released him. Thank you, Sasuke. If you weren't here. Uchiha, who was young, gazed out the open door. So this is what you have to go through. That man won't be coming back soon, will he? Sakura's mom gave a headshake. No, you scared him off good. He's a paranoid man so he'll think that you're here with me all the time. Sasuke let out a sigh. If you say so, then I'll go. Just as he turned to go, Akai interrupted. She was crying as she tried to pull the young boy out of his funk. Sasuke, you can't let my daughter's death affect your life. I've seen what it's been doing to you, and you need to snap out of it. You have good friends and family, and they all like to have you back to your old self. It wasn't your fault, you must understand. When Sasuke turned to face her, his eyes grew wide. There was silence for a few seconds, and then the boy smiled slightly. I'll try. I have a lot of work to get done before the finals. Akai smiled and said, I wish you the best of luck then, Sasuke. Kimimaro, meanwhile, was furious with the man who was meant to be watching over him in the hospital. Might Guy yelled at him, come on Kimimaro-kun. Pick those feet up, show off your flames of youth by walking straight. Since Guy was the Jonin responsible for keeping Kimimaro safe from the sound ninjas until the Chunin exams were finished, the young Kagaya has resisted the urge to murder him. As the doctors shushed the green-clad Jonin, the ill teenager watched with laughter. Guy nodded sheepishly. It wasn't until recently that the teenager realized the pills he took from Kabuto were making his illness worse. They were at the hospital to get more medications for Kimimaro's illness. Kimimaro became enraged with the man wearing glasses after he brought his bottle of pills to the doctors, who informed him that it was speeding up the disease. Later, a nurse showed up carrying Kimimaro's new medication bottle. Here you go, sir. This should help slow down the disease. I'm sorry, that's all that we can do for now. She gave a bow. With a nod, Kimimaro watched her leave. Guy said, Yosh. Kimimaro-kun. Where to? Kagaya, the young one, sighed. In his typical monotone, he declared, I'm going back to my hospital room. Since Tenten was still here, Kimimaro made the decision to pay her a visit. Kimimaro felt somehow accountable for Neji's dominance of her during the preliminary exams. He turned to see a nurse passing by and said, I told her to keep fighting when she obviously didn't want to. Excuse me, but where is Tenten's room? The nurse gave a nod. Room 203. Someone else is there, but you can still go. Who else would be there? Kimimaro asked, raising an eyebrow. Perhaps that Lee person is present. Who knows? Kimimaro shrugged and headed for her room. He saw that there was another person present when he did. Kimimaro went inside after opening the door. Neji. Neji watched Tenten sleep and turned around. The Hyuga genius glared at the Kagaya and got to his feet, revealing a disheveled and sleep deprived Neji. And what might you be doing here? If I recall, you have no reason to be here, as you are not her teammate or family. Kimimaro's eyes were hardened as he gazed at Neji. I'm here because I have something to say to her, but it seems she's not awake. So I'm going to wait here. And why are you, the one who did this to her, care anyway? Neji laughed and left without saying anything. Tenten's face was still scarred from her battle with the Hyuga, and it might not fully heal, so Kimimaro sighed and walked up to her sleeping form. He didn't care about it. Moments later, Tenten's eyes fluttered open. MMH. Kimimaro. What are you doing here? He appeared somewhat adorable in his own sickly way when viewed up close. The Kagaya stopped when she looked at him. He was still perplexed by what Kimimaro did that day. Why did he encourage her to fight? I wanted to apologize from what I said at the exams. I shouldn't have intervened. The girl with the brown hair shook her head. She smiled and said, No, it's fine. Actually, I'm glad you did. At least Neji will know I'm not as weak as he might think. When her door opened, Haku in a wheelchair was there. She grinned when she noticed Naruto's relative present. The lanky sound ninja arched an eyebrow. Hello Kimimaro. I'm sorry, but you have to leave the room for now. It shouldn't take long. Tenten's blush cleared his confusion. He gave a nod and walked away. After learning that Haku was employed at the hospital, Sasuke made the decision to pay her a visit. Sasuke hurried along after the nurse said she was at room 203, but he saw someone outside the door. The Uchiha said, Kimimaro, right? What are you doing here? The Kagaya gave a shrug. Sasuke, Ed, and leaned against the wall, saying, came to see Tenten. Haku and her are in there doing some female-related thing or something. Later, Haku and Tenten emerged, accompanied by the girl with the bun hair in the wheelchair. Haku's eyes widened when she saw Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. What are you doing here? Aren't you helping Akai for the day? Sasuke gave a headshake. I'm done, but listen. I wanted to apologize to you, and to everyone else, for how I've been acting. I shunned and ignored you when you were just trying to help. Please, forgive me. Haku gave him a charming smile. It's okay, Sasuke-kun. I know what it's like to have someone like that die. But next time, let us help you. She was addressing him. Scratching his head in shame, he said, yeah, right, sorry. At the expense of Sasuke, Tenten laughed. Jiraiya and Naruto have spent the entire morning honing their taijutsu. Jiraiya leaned back and drank from his shot glass as the two decided to visit the hot springs for a rest. Now that we've gotten your taijutsu out of the way, what say we work on your summoning abilities? Naruto's eyebrow went up. Summoning? How do you do that? Jiraiya chuckled. Jiraiya looked into the installed peephole and said, we'll get to that later, brat. Right now let's relax while I do research. He gave a twisted laugh. Naruto let out a sigh. Geez, this is gonna take a while. As Naruto and Jiraiya arrived at a remote location close to a cliff, the toad sage bit his thumb and created some hand seals. Summoning jutsu. He slapped his hand on the ground, and a giant toad carrying a contract scroll materialized in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya handed it to him. Here you go kid. The contract scroll. With this you'll be able to summon toads like your real father. All you have to do is sign your name in blood and it's an okay from there. The blonde boy nodded and arched an eyebrow. He signed his name on the scroll by biting his thumb. He took a moment to realize that the name in front of him was Minato Namikaze. That's my father all right, smiled the Jinchuriki. Naruto glanced up at his godfather after finishing. So what happens next? Pervy Sage gave a nod. Now, make these hand seals. Jiraiya slowly executed the hand seals so Naruto could obtain them. Fortunately, Naruto picked them up quickly. The genin slapped his palm on the ground and saw a toad emerge in a puff of smoke. Okay, here goes. Summoning jutsu. The little orange toad had a blue vest. Gamakichi asked, Jiraiya, how come you summoned me? Gonna give me a snack? As he turned to face Jiraiya. The Sannin gave a headshake. Jiraiya pointed to Naruto and remarked, I wasn't the one who summoned you, it was him. When Gamakichi turned around, the boy gave him a sheepish smile. The blonde said, so you're our newest summoner. Name's Gamakichi, son of the boss toad, Gamabunta. Nice to meet you, kid. Gamakichi poofed into smoke before the blonde could respond. Jiraiya gave a clap of his hands. Nice job, Naruto. I would have never guessed you'd summon Gamakichi on your first try. You really do have your father's talents. Naruto gestured at himself with his thumb. Well, what'd you expect? I'm also the son of the Kyuubi. Jiraiya shot back, don't let it get to your head, brat. The toad Sennin moaned as Naruto pouted and puffed his lower lip at him. Naruto obeyed and went to work, saying, You're a pain, kid. Now then, summon up some more toads. Jiraiya was amazed by the boy's immense potential and his ability to call forth larger and more formidable toads, but still. Naruto collapsed to the ground later that day, exhausted. He uttered the words, phew. That was fun meeting everyone. Repeatedly. The young teenager leapt up. Now then, let's. The boy turned to face the pervy sage, who had an unreadable expression on his face, and said, Naruto, wait. Naruto closed his eyes and nodded as he and his godfather approached the cliff. You see that cliff over there? Come on, let's walk up to it. Naruto peered over the precipice. He exclaimed, wow, such a deep ravine. So pervy sage, what are we? Wah. Jiraiya shoved Naruto off the cliff before he could react. Damn you pervy sage. The boy yelled from inside the ravine. He attempted to use his chakra to adhere to the pointed walls, but the walls were too slippery. Ah. If I don't take action, I will die. Naruto pulled himself into his own head at that thought. The mindscape of Naruto. The Kyuubi gazed down at the blonde boy in his fox form as he hurried up to the large cage where his father was. Naruto, what's the matter? The boy gave a sigh. I need chakra to summon up a toad. Hurry, or I'm gonna get skewered. Yokumaru had been preventing Naruto from using his chakra ever since the Forest of Death incident. Every time he tapped into it, it seemed like he would start to lose his sense of reason and get pieces of a bone mask on his face. And the Kyuubi obeyed. Here you go, stay in control. Naruto smiled in relief and said, thanks, Dad, before he disappeared. With a low, menacing growl, Yokumaru turned to face a secret hallway. I don't know what you are, but try and take over my son, you'll pay for it dearly. Returning to the real world, the boy bit his thumb as Naruto felt the Kyuubi's chakra flow through his veins. Hopefully this works. Jutsu is being summoned. The young Kagaya looked to see that Naruto had summoned a very large toad, much larger than the one he had previously summoned, with a pipe in his mouth and a scar across his left eye. Naruto's descent came to an end in a huge puff of smoke as he landed on a faded blue jacket. Naruto gazed down at him in wonder. You must be this Naruto brat my sons were talking about, Gamabunta said, glancing up at the child. Hold on, Gamabunta successfully rescued Naruto from his premature death by leaping high into the air, and when the large boss toad landed directly in front of Jiraiya, the pervy sage looked up in admiration. You bastard, Naruto said, pointing a finger down at him. You crazy person, why did you push me off that cliff? As though he had grown an extra head, Gamabunta looked up at Naruto and said, What? You were down there because of Jiraiya? The boy frowned as he nodded his head. You gotta hear me out, I only did so he can summon, Jiraiya said, waving his palms in defense. Jiraiya. What did you consider? By the end of today, I expect Gamakichi to be punished with 3 pounds of sugary treats, Gamabunta roared. Otherwise, I'll be interacting with you directly. Using his chakra, Naruto was able to stop himself from falling as the giant toad poofed out of existence. You had better get going, the blonde container said, glaring at the pervert. With a cunning smile, he said, It's already sunset. Jiraiya nodded and quickly looked for some candy. Sasuke met Itachi and Ayame during Naruto's training. Itachi was using a shadow clone to practice his taijutsu while Ayame watched, blushing slightly. Oh, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he was sweating and shirtless. With a smile, Sasuke approached his brother and said, Yo, Itachi.ni. I'm prepared to begin my training, he declared. Itachi turned to face him after dispelling his clone. Well, how about Akai? She let me go early today, said the youthful Uchiha, shaking his head. I also want to apologize for being so negative. I'm not sure why Sakura's passing is affecting me so strongly. Despite having numerous reasons, the elder Uchiha chose not to say, That's okay, Sasuke. Put yourself in a Kenjutsu stance now, and let's begin with your swordplay. Sasuke stared in wonder at the new katana Itachi pulled out from where his shirt and vest were. The blade was translucent, as though something should fit inside it. Where did you get that? That is the first time I've seen it. In between bites, the Jonin said, It's a fail. Safe for Orochimaru's assault on the Leaf Village. He also pulled out a stick of strawberry pocky. With wide eyes, Sasuke said, Oh, Orochimaru. Ayame was also taken aback. The ramen girl had heard about Orochimaru from a number of patrons, and based on what she understood, Orochimaru was a Sannin who had turned traitor, so that implies. Will Orochimaru launch an assault on the Leaf? Ayame suffocated. Itachi grimly nodded. A source claims that Orochimaru and Suna will launch their attack during the Chunin exam finals. I have been ignoring you lately, Ayame-chan, because we need all the time between then and now to get ready for this. I apologize. Sasuke took that information in, thinking, maybe Orochimaru is what they were talking about when Itachi and Yokumaru said, "Great evil." Ayame was able to smile at him in spite of the news because she knew he loved Konoha and would stop at nothing to save this village. But first, we need to get you ready for Gaara, said the elder Uchiha, turning to his younger brother. Are you prepared? As he turned on his Sharingan, he said. When Gaara's name was mentioned, Sasuke's eyes hardened and he activated his own Sharingan, saying, "Yeah, I'm ready." Hinata was enjoying her afternoon off at the same time. She was aimlessly wandering when she felt her stomach rumble with hunger. The Hyuga heiress blushed a little and looked around for somewhere to eat, but luckily there was a ramen stand close by, so she went into Ichiraku's and sat down. With a smile, Tucci welcomed his newest client. "Good afternoon, Hyuga-san. What will it be?" The Hyuga heiress saw a picture of Tucci and a younger Ayame on the table behind the counter, and Hinata's eyes widened as she smiled and said, "I'll have vegetable ramen, please." Later, Ichiraku's chef emerged carrying a brand new bowl and said, "Here you go, ma'am." Hinata glanced at the photo once more while she was eating. "So you're the father of Ayame-chan?" Tucci paused his activity and gave a nod. "Yes, I am. How is she doing? How is she doing?" The ramen girl, Naruto, Sasuke, Itachi, and Yokumaru never returned after Tucci fired her, and the girl's father felt bad about it because she also stopped talking to him after that. Knowing what had transpired between them, Hinata furrowed her brows and said, "She's doing fine. Itachi-san takes good care of her along with Naruto-kun and the rest." With a sigh of relief, Tucci said, "That's good. What did you do to her?" The Hyuga girl asked, squinting her eyes. "Her dream of working here was crushed by you. She informed me that Ichiraku received threats and was vandalized as a result of the villagers' disapproval of her being Itachi-san's girlfriend. What did you do, too? You dismissed your own daughter and destroyed her love for you rather than dealing with the issue." The middle-aged man felt sick knowing that his daughter's dream was dead because of him, and Tucci was shocked. He always questioned whether his choice was the right one, but he never realized how much it hurt Ayame to be fired from here. Hinata wasn't finished. This was Ayame-chan's dream job, and she loved it here. And things only improved after she started dating Itachi. However, you fire her in order to appease the locals and keep your company afloat. To what extent can a father be ashamed? After a brief period of silence, Tucci said, But, what choice did I have? Meekly, he said. In an attempt to lift her spirits and give the ramen chef some space to reflect, the young genin got up from her seat, placed her money on the table, and turned to face him. You should have made the right decision than the proper one. During that month, the Chunin hopeful put in a lot of effort to prepare for the finals. Naruto learned how to perform combinations with his summoned toads and also received a crash course in sealing. Sasuke learned how to use the Mangekyo Sharingan and was also taught Chidori by Kakashi. Hinata perfected a jutsu to counter the 64 palms, called Shugo Hake, 64 palms. Kimimaro amused Tenten, who was still healing from her broken arms, by practicing his dances. The bun-haired girl made fun of the lanky sound ninja's moves, which somehow depressed Kimimaro. Jiraiya and Sarutobi had both secretly begun training to get ready for Orochimaru's attack, while Deidara sneaked out of the ANBU's watch to train himself. The finals are 3 days away. Naruto, who had been dismissed early that day by pervy Sage to go about the town, was searching Konoha with a box of something for Hinata when he discovered the lavender-eyed girl sitting on a bench nearby. Hina-chan. As Naruto got closer, the girl's cheeks flushed. "Hello, Naruto-kun," Hinata said. "What's in that box?" Naruto laughed and said, "Here is something special for you." The girl opened the box he gave her, and Hinata's eyes grew wide as she saw what was inside. At the corner of her mouth, drool began to form. Circa cinnamon rolls. It was a big box of 30 or so. When Naruto found out she had a weakness for cinnamon rolls, and the fact that she can down those things like he could down ramen, he went to buy her some. To be honest, Naruto did this to see how much she'd appreciate it. Hinata hugged the blonde boy tightly. "Oh Naruto-kun, thank you. Have they gotten bigger over the month? Naruto blushed slightly as he felt Hinata's assets squeeze against the combined fabrics of her shirt and his kimono. As Hinata ate the cinnamon treats, the blue-eyed boy noticed that they had grown larger and that her midnight blue hair had grown longer, making her look even more beautiful than before. Hinata blushed hotly as she saw his eyes. Sorry, seeing you watch me eat in this manner is really embarrassing. To get out of his daze, Naruto shook his head. No, really, it's okay. They have less than ideal eating habits when it comes to their favorite foods. Hinata laughed at Naruto's remark. You should see how I ramen, Hina-chan. Naruto stood up from his chair and stretched. Hey Hina-chan, wanna go up top the Hokage monument? It's a great view. After eating the last of her cinnamon rolls, the lavender-eyed girl nodded joyfully and said, okay, I'd love to go. On the head of the fourth, looking off into the distance, Hinata exclaimed, wow, the vista is breathtaking. From their location, you could see the entire village, particularly the fourth's head on the monument. I always come here to think, Naruto smiled. I always come up here to take in the view when something is bothering or worrying me. The brunette gave him a questioning glance and said, oh, what's wrong? Are you bothered by something? Naruto gestured for her to take a seat, saying, yeah, there is. He sat with his arms encircling his knees and his knees close to his chest. Hinata took a seat near him and said, well, what is it? It's you, the blonde boy sighed. I'm concerned for you. In 3 days, you will face Neji, and that man is Naruto-kun. I know Neji is a formidable opponent, but I won't back down, Hinata said, placing a hand on his shoulder as the brunette blushed when he expressed his concern for her. I'll do everything in my power to combat him. But what if everything isn't enough? Naruto asked, turning to face her. What if he causes you the same pain that he caused Tenten? Naruto put his head down. I don't want you to suffer that kind of harm, Hina-chan. The Hyuga heiress boldly raised Naruto's head to her, and she gave him a charming smile. Naruto-kun, you're so sweet sometimes, Hinata said, placing a hand on her heart. Naruto wasn't just worried, he was afraid for her. You don't need to be scared. I'll defeat Neji because I want to show him something that might help him see the light. Naruto-kun, that's the reason I've been training so hard. Just have faith in me, and I'll be fine. Right there, Naruto's mood lifted, and he grinned broadly. I believe in you, Hinata. Hina-chan, you always know how to cheer me up. With their faces inches apart, the girl whispered, Naruto. The two slowly pressed their lips together, but before they could make contact, they heard a perverted laugh. Alert! Naruto got to his feet and asked, what was? He turned to see Jiraiya scrawling in his notepad while concealed behind a rock. Pervy sage? Why are you here? The toad Sennin emerged from his hiding place and said, I'm gathering inspiration for my next book. I believe I'll call it, The Princess and the Young Sage. As Naruto pulled out a bone sword, Hinata was flushed. Gimme that notepad. I will tear it to pieces. Hinata chuckled as she saw the love of her life pursue the white-haired man, while Jiraiya yelled and fled from Naruto's fury. On the night before the finals, Sarutobi, who had just finished reading Deidara's report on the Akatsuki, a group of S-class ninja with questionable intentions, smoked from his pipe behind his desk in the Hokage's office. This is very detailed and shows that Akatsuki has a clear goal. Capture the 9 Biju, said Sarutobi, leaning back in his chair and pinching his nose. Yeah, so what are you going to do, Deidara said with a sly smile. Remember that I have a thorough account of every active member, including their advantages and disadvantages. Hiruzen nodded and said, we'll begin training teams to fight Akatsuki once this whole Orochimaru situation is resolved. I'll keep this with me as well, he added, supporting the reports. Deidara shrugged and said, of course, my man. However, when can I expect to see my family again? After the exams, my clay-wielding spy, said Sarutobi with a sly smile. Examination day. The Chunin exams stadium was filled with civilians, ninja, and daimyos, and the genin were all lined up in front of Genma Shiranui. Naruto squeezed Hinata's hand as the matchups were revealed. All right, will everyone take their seats and only Hinata Hyuga and Neji Hyuga remain? Genma gave the order. Naruto whispered in Hinata's ear, Hina-chan, you're very important to me. I believe in you. The lavender-eyed girl blushed as her love interest departed. The genin nodded and started to walk away. I'll just have to fix that. Destiny mandates me to do so, Neji frowned, finding the girl's blush repulsive and unworthy of a Hyuga. Itachi, Ayame, and Haku were seated next to Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke said, "Hey you guys." The group moved aside to make room for the two of them. "I can't stop shaking," the blonde said, looking thoughtfully over the railing, still worried for her. Naruto's true fear was that she would die like Sakura. Between the two Genma glanced. "All right, Sento Kaishi." In search of a seat, Yokumaru approached the stands at the Chunin Finals arena and found one next to a certain Kurenai Yuhi. As he came closer, the demon fox caught her eye with a snarling smile. "Hey, Kurenai. Mind if I sit?" The mistress's genjutsu cheeks flushed. Yokumaru nodded and took a seat, saying, Sure. Go ahead." Sitting next to him, Kurenai felt her body warming up. She felt guilty for having a schoolgirl crush on the demon fox. Yokumaru asked abruptly, "So it's Hinata versus Neji. How do you think your student is going to do?" His voice jolted the black-haired woman out of her reverie. I wouldn't know. I haven't seen her all month. Her father wanted to train her personally." The fox with the red hair gave a nod. Kurenai gave a rigid nod. "I see. Heishi didn't make it easy for you to say no then, I presume?" Yokumaru's eyebrow went up. "Hey, you all right? You look uncomfortable." The mistress of genjutsu shook her head. No, I'm fine. Look, the match is starting." On the floor of the stadium, Genma nibbled on his senbon while flitting his gaze between the two Hyuga. "All right, the rules are exactly the same. But except this time there's no killing." Neji appeared insulted. Hinata glared at her cousin and said, "What, no killing? And what happened to change that?" He considered killing her, and she was shocked. Genma gave the Hyuga a look. "What's it to you? Anyway, do your best, you're representing your clans and also Konoha. Sento Kaishi." As her cousin crossed his arms defiantly, Hinata calmly slipped into a Jiyuken stance. "What is this? Are you still going to try? You do know destiny demands your defeat." As the girl looked down, Neji grinned, and to his surprise, Hinata gave him a fierce look. "You know that I don't care about what destiny demands. I won't let your fear tactics work on me," she said calmly and icily. Heishi couldn't help but smile proudly up in the stands. The prodigy from Hyuga squinted. "Then I'll have to knock out that spine you've suddenly grown." The teenager assumed a Jiyuken stance and gestured for Hinata to approach him. The girl complied and launched a vicious barrage of Jiyuken blows, which Neji deflected and retaliated against, ultimately leading to a standoff as they both leapt back. They looked at one another and charged again. Play the crisis cores on the verge of assault. FFVII Ost. Neji leapt to his feet and hurled a barrage of shuriken, which Hinata deflected with the Kaden. The male Hyuga then used the opportunity to strike Hinata's chest with his palm, but the girl managed to avoid any significant harm and returned fire, hitting him in the shoulders. Neji took a step back and used his Byakugan. And charged again. Neither of them was able to land a solid hit on the other, and they were once more engaged in a power struggle involving palm strikes. In the upper stands, when the match began, Naruto yelled from his standing position, "All right, go Hina-chan. Kick his ass." The boy was unable to sit any longer and was jumping around and supporting his close friend. At his brother's antics, Sasuke shook his head and crossed his arms. The blonde sheepishly scratched the back of his head and said, "Naruto, will you sit? Geez man, you look like an idiot." Itachi appeared to be interested in this match. "Well, that is odd." Ayame and the boys gave him a weird look. "What you mean?" inquired Naruto. The weasel reclined in his chair. "Hinata hasn't activated her Byakugan and yet she's matching Neji in almost everything." Sasuke's and Naruto's eyes grew wide. "Seriously? But how?" Uchiha, who had raven hair, inquired. Itachi glanced up at Hiashi's location. In addition to being completely engrossed in the match, the man was also grinning. It must have taken intensive training to pull that one off. All I can say is, Hinata's level of growth in the Jiyuken is unprecedented. Hearing how much Hinata had grown made Naruto's heart leap with joy for her. "That's awesome," he exclaimed as he leapt back up and stood on the balcony's edge. "Hinata, win this." Returning to the arena as the battle continued, Neji's rage grew stronger and she targeted more important areas, only to have Hinata hit them away without using her Byakugan. Neji became irate and careless as a result. However, Hinata is enjoying watching Neji get mad at his own shortcomings. She is able to land hits more easily, and he takes a lot of damage from them. Neji was not amenable to Hinata's attempt to palm strike her head. Instead, he took hold of her arm and slammed her tenketsu across her torso. The branch prodigy mercilessly applied one of the Hyuga's highly valued techniques to his cousin, sending her sliding to the ground and remaining motionless. "You won't forget this, Kaiten," I said. The audience let out a gasp. Neji approached Hinata calmly and took a position above her. "Don't you see? Taking pity on me by not using your Byakugan will only hasten your eventual loss." The boy flew back in shock as the brunette sprang to her feet and delivered a vicious palm strike to Neji's chest. Hinata's Byakugan eyes were blazing as she glared at him. "I'm sick and tired of you always trying to put people down. I'm not holding back anymore." The Hyuga prodigy returned the glare, spitting out some blood. "Fine, then I won't hold back either. Play the Dissidia OST's Cosmos." Hinata charged and launched her attack on Neji's Tenketsu, but the prodigy wasn't going to let her get away with it. He hit some of her blows back and deflected most of them. Neji became tired of this and said, "That's enough. Hake. 60, 4 palms. Not yet, Hake. 60, 4 palms, 2 palms. 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms. 64 palms." Despite matching each other's speed and lethal accuracy, neither of them was able to land a single blow. The final blow's force sent them both reeling backwards. In the upper stands, Hanabi's young eyes were filled with rage as she gazed down at the intense battle. What gave Hinata her strength? Did she really keep all of this to herself? The younger sister was incensed. Heishi saw the look on his youngest's face, and let out a sigh. "Hanabi, are you jealous?" With pained eyes, the brunette gazed up at her father. "It's not fair, father. Hinata is so strong now, and I'm so weak. I hate it." Heishi gave a headshake. "Hanabi, you can't expect your older sister to be below you because our fellow clansmen think so. You should start paying attention to her growth and source of strength." Confused, the young girl gazed down at the altercation. Source of strength? He was encouraging Hinata when the clan head glanced at Naruto. It made him smile a little because he thought of Minato. That Uzumaki boy, he is what drives her to fight harder. After seeing him, Hanabi recalled her father's previous remarks about him as someone who gave Hinata strength. He lose like he's nothing special. Why is he the source of her strength? Because, your sister is quite taken to him. In fact, dare I say, she may be in love with him. Heishi responded impolitely. Hanabi's eyes widened as she gazed at the boy. Gazing up at her father, she exclaimed, "What? He's not even a Hyuga. How could she love him?" The man gave a headshake. Heishi looked down at his youngest daughter and raised an eyebrow, saying, "She's in control of her own life. I believe she has the right to choose who she falls in love with, even if it's a non-Hyuga. Somehow, I feel this has something to do with position of clan head, doesn't it, Hanabi?" Embarrassed, his daughter cast a downward glance. "If I'm not strong enough to be clan head, I'll be sealed. I don't want that." "And yet you thought Hinata was going to be sealed because you thought she was weak?" The tone of her father's voice changed, and Hanabi noticed it. Meekly, she said, "Everyone else thought she was weak because she didn't like to fight." Hiashi's brows furrowed. "You should take better observation. I expect better from you, Hanabi." Hanabi cast a downward glance. "Yes, father, at the stadium below." In addition to keeping up with him, the weakling was winning, which infuriated Neji. After glancing at her, the genius spat blood. "You? Where did you get such strength?" After giving the stands a quick glance while maintaining her Jiyuken stance, Hinata closed her eyes. "Why do you care about a weakling's source of strength?" Neji snarled and lunged, attempting a palm strike, but Hinata grabbed his arm with ease, flipped him over his shoulder, and hit him in the chest, sending him tumbling to the ground. Hinata turned away from him when he didn't get up, which provided the Hyuga with the ideal opportunity to quickly get up and run to her. "You're mine, Hake." He was abruptly confronted by Hinata. "Shugo Hake. 60, 4 palms." As she started to counter his deflected attacks, a hazy blue barrier appeared around her body, shielding her like a dome. At the 64th strike, Neji was sent flying to the wall, and Hinata relaxed her stance as Neji lost consciousness. Gemna glanced at Neji, who was completely stunned. "The winner is Hyuga Hinata." The Hyuga girl blushed and bowed courteously as the crowd erupted in cheers and praise. She saw the medics hurry over to Neji and sighed as she started to leave. When Hinata thought about her near kiss with Naruto a few days prior, she blushed profusely and wanted to talk to him about it. She walked to the row where Naruto was and said, "Hello everyone," with a smile. Naruto leapt from his chair, rushed to her, and gave her a hug. "Well done, Hina-chan. You truly made that bastard pay attention. The girl's face heated up as he put his face closer to her ear and whispered softly, "I'm glad you're okay." The two parted ways, and Sasuke approached them, saying, "That was a good fight, you surprised us with your improvement. I wasn't going to let you two be the strong ones all the time, right?" Hinata grinned. "I can still make things right, I just hope Kurenai lets me," Itachi said with a sly smile and crossed arms as the three of them laughed. "Hey, Naruto-kun, could we have a brief conversation?" Hinata said abruptly. "Yes, but for what?" With joy, the boy of her dreams asked. "Just follow me." Hinata led him down a corridor that appeared to be particularly unutilized and led to the arena. "This way we can be discreet." "Okay, we've arrived. What was it you wanted to discuss with me?" Hinata shifted uneasily, flushed. "Remember 3 days ago when we nearly, you understand, kissed?" Naruto was the next to shift uneasily and flush profusely. "Yeah, I recall." "Well, when we were about to, what did you think of me?" Hinata's old habit of pressing her index fingers together returned, and she was unable to control her stuttering. Naruto nervously scratched the back of his head, avoiding eye contact and staring at the ceiling. "Well, I don't know," he said. "I was completely disoriented when it occurred." Her next question caused the brunette to flush even more. "Well, how do you now feel about me? Do you okay? Like me?" Naruto was unable to contain his utterance. "I do, of course. You're my closest friend, and I really like you. However, I can't explain why I don't see you like that anymore these days. You inhale your favorite food like I do, and you're kind, intelligent, strong, and level-headed. And not just that, you're beautiful, too," he said, laughing, as Hinata was too preoccupied to respond. "Nothing can convince me that you are not the most beautiful kunoichi in all of Konoha." Hinata, whose heart was racing a million miles per hour and making her go crazy, leaned her back against the wall and clenched her chest through the material of her shirt. Naruto-kun, you." The blonde approached her and placed his hands on the wall. They looked into each other's eyes, with Hinata staring into Naruto's pearl eyes and him into his cerulean ones. They brought their lips together, and the heat between them was almost palpable. "Hey, Hina-chan." Hinata's father had come up to Kiba and asked him where she was, and when he didn't know, he asked him to find her, so here he was. The dog boy saw Hinata and Naruto standing apart, with Hinata looking away and Naruto apparently coughing. "What were the two of you doing down here, I wonder?" the Inuzuka inquired. Hinata turned to face him, her blush finally disappearing, and snapped back, "It's none of your business, Kiba." "Hey, what did I do?" Akamaru, wearing his jacket, began giggling at his partner's expense as the boy asked. "What do you want? Never mind." The brunette, who was furious with Kiba, inquired. Your dad was looking for you. He wants to talk to you about your match, I'm guessing." The eyes of Hinata grew wide. "Oh, I'd better leave Naruto-kun now." As she walked away, the blonde waved backhandedly. As he got closer to the blonde, who was still looking the other way, Kiba hemmed, "What the hell were you two doing? Will Kimimaro Kagaya and Naruto Uzumaki be reporting to the stadium?" Naruto raised his head. "What, is it already my turn? I apologize, Kiba, but I have to leave too." "Don't lose," the dog boy grunted. "Not until I win Hina-chan and kick your ass." As he walked away, the blonde said, "Keep dreaming." In the medical facility, an Anbu entered as Neji was looking out the window, watching the graceful, masterless birds fly by. "Excuse me, Neji," he said, wondering if he was mistaken and if fate was predetermined or something he could control. "However, someone of interest wants to talk to you. He wishes to make a contribution." With narrowed eyes, the Hyuga genius said, "And who could that be?" Under his mask, Kabuto grinned and said, "His name is Orochimaru." At the stadium, "I didn't think we'd fight so soon," said the lanky sounding ninja as Naruto and Kimimaro stared at one another. "What happened, I wonder?" "I don't know, but hey, this means I get to show you my strength much earlier," shrugged Naruto. "All right," said Kimimaro, drawing a bone sword. "I want to know if you are deserving of bringing our clan back to life." Genma glanced between them. Match 2. Kimimaro Kagaya vs Naruto Uzumaki, Sento Kaishi. Orochimaru's gift kept him up at night because of that recurring dream that he's been having again, and as a result, Sasuke looked sleep-deprived and a little disheveled. In the stands, he impatiently tapped his foot, resisting the urge to touch the curse seal on his neck. He was relieved that he didn't have to fight yet, as this thing has been driving him crazy. "Kun Sasuke?" The Uchiha turned to see Haku staring at him with a worried expression on her face, her chocolate brown eyes displaying worry and a hint of fear. Sasuke smiled slightly and said, "Yo, you need something? Are you okay?" The older girl asked, glancing down and then back at him. "You have bags under your eyes and appear paler than normal. Have you been getting enough sleep?" Sasuke turned his head away and said, "I'm all right, it has never been better." "You're lying." "All right." Sasuke. Haku put a hand on Sasuke's shoulder and said, "Look, I know you've been through a lot, as of late, but you have to let me in and let me know how you're feeling." She had been worried about Sasuke's mental health since the Forest of Death incident and Sakura's murder, and she was angry that he won't talk to people about how he feels inside, especially about her. "There's nothing to say," the almost 14-year-old said, turning away once more. "I don't want to discuss anything," he uttered quietly. With a sigh, Haku said, "Well, if that's how it's going to be, I'm going to have to make you talk." With a smile, Sasuke said, "Good luck with that." Itachi, on the other hand, simply eyed them both, sighed as he turned to face Ayame, who had fallen asleep in his chest. At the stadium below, Genma glanced at both of the Chunin hopefuls and said, "All right, you two are aware of the rules, aren't you?" Kimimaro and Naruto gave a rigid nod. "All right, Sento Kaishi." The crowd watched in wonder as Naruto shrugged off his battle kimono and drew a bone sword of his own. It was the moment of truth, and Naruto grinned as Kimimaro did so. There was only one person with this Kekkei Genkai that the older crowd members knew, and she is equally as brat as Naruto. Kagaya Kushina. Additionally, they were aware of Kushina's partner and eventually got married. Namikaze Minato. As they connected the dots, a horrified expression appeared on their faces, and Naruto smiled at the sounds of the group's gasps, saying, "Hee, I like the sound of surprise and shock. Are you not, Kimimaro?" "I don't care," the lanky ninja shrugged, "so should we dance now?" "Yeah, let's," Naruto said, bouncing lightly on his feet. Play the Final Fantasy VII. Advent Children OSTs JENOVA. Kimimaro twirled his bone sword in front of Naruto as a taunt, and Naruto fell for it. Naruto and Kimimaro lunged forward at each other and clashed weapons, both of them expertly blocking each swipe and stab at their way. Then, they backed off by jumping back. Naruto sucked his teeth as he tried to think of a plan, but Kimimaro was running towards him. The blonde and Kimi both leapt into the air, and they clashed in midair. The two Kagaya then leapt back on the stadium walls and used chakra to stick. In the upper stands, whoa, incredible! It appears to be a dance rather than a brawl. The lethal dance between the two blood relatives left Hanabi speechless. "Well, Naruto-kun always wanted to make his fights memorable and flashy," Hinata said with a charming smile to her sister. "It's just the way he does things." Hanabi nodded, looking up at her. Heishi heard the gasps and grinned at the horrified expressions on the faces of the villagers when they saw Naruto's Kekkei Genkai. The father of the girls looked down at the blonde, who was now acting defensively. It was time for Minato and Kushina to begin exacting their retribution on the villagers, of course in the form of their son. "That boy reminds me too much of his mother," Heishi said. It was really annoying that her exams went exactly like this against her opponent. "Apparently, it's in his blood," Hinata said, laughing at her father's comment. As Hanabi glanced between the two, Heishi nodded. "Naruto is Naruto." In the stadium, while Kimi was beginning to falter, Naruto's endurance allowed him to keep up with his older relative, and after a few solid strikes, they both jumped back and began to bounce lightly on one foot. "Genji dance. Let's move." Kimi and Naruto began spinning quickly as they both charged forward and began slashing, their blows clashing as they began the next phase. The force caused them to slide backwards as their attacks cancelled out again, and Naruto stood up, feeling a little lightheaded. "We're both near equals, it's getting us nowhere," he laughed as he concluded. With a slight grin, Kimimaro got to his feet and said, "How about we alter the level of play?" Naruto raised an eyebrow as the lanky ninja put his hands on the ground. "Bracken dance." The blonde used a chakra powered jump to safely avoid the large bone spikes that were about to emerge from beneath his feet, but Kimimaro was one step ahead of him, as he was behind him in an instant with a bone drill ready to strike. "It's over, Clematis dance." "Flower!" Naruto gasped as the spikes appeared out of the ground. The crowd watched them both fall to the ground in the thick forest of bones as Naruto whirled around in shock. In the bleachers, "Oh! Naruto-kun!" Hinata leaned on the railing, waiting, and yelled. The two fighters landed in the thick forest with a loud crash. The entire crowd can no longer see them. "I just need to have faith in Naruto-kun. I know he's all right," said Hinata, shaking her head. At the stadium, with wide eyes, Kimimaro watched as he fought to free his arm from Naruto's hold. He was taken aback when the boy actually grabbed his arm during the attack, sending them both to the ground. The blonde grinned. With his free hand, Naruto made a bone drill and stabbed Kimimaro, sending the white-haired teenager reeling toward the wall. Now, I can return the favor, Naruto said. As Naruto pulled out a bone sword, Kimimaro coughed up blood and gasped in agony from the shock of being slammed into the concrete wall. Naruto yelled, "Don't tell me you're going to quit." Kimimaro merely gave him a scowl. As Naruto got ready to attack, he slowly moved off the wall. "All right. Fine. Since this will be the last time I fight you." Kimimaro raised his hands to block Naruto's slash as he leapt into the air to deliver the final blow while black markings encircled his body. When the blonde's eyes widened at the block, he turned to face Kimimaro. His face changed, and he also developed a tail. Looking up at him in his Curse Seal 2 form, Naruto's relative said, "I might as well go all out." Naruto said, "What the?" but was flung before he could finish, landing a few yards away. The blonde turned to face Kimimaro, who has developed spikes and horns on his back as well. "Kimimaro, what happened? How did you change like that?" Kimimaro gave the blonde a look. He pulled out his spine to form a whip and said, "This is the power of the Curse Seal. This is the level 2 state. The form changes from person to person, this just happens to be mine." The white-haired ninja suddenly materialized in front of Naruto, grabbed him with his whip, and threw him into a bone spike. "If you don't use that red chakra power of yours, you'll lose." Naruto coughed as he stood up to come up with a strategy, but Kimimaro was already attacking, and the blonde was forced to defend as the older ninja launched a swift attack. Naruto was unable to keep up and was kicked further into the dense bone forest. He entered his mindscape, and the blonde stood up shakily. The cage of Kyuubi. Yokumaru was already at the Kyuubi cage when Naruto hurried up to it. "What's going on during your match? We just saw you go down, heard some stuff, and then I sensed some malevolent chakra." The blonde gave a headshake. "Dad, I need some chakra. I won't be able to fight Kimimaro on my strength alone now that he's using the Curse Seal." As red chakra began to seep into Naruto from the cage, Yokumaru nodded. They had no idea that something else had made the decision to show up. "It's my turn to have fun," in the upper stands. Kurenai gasped as she watched Yokumaru faint, his eyes glowing red as he sagged over. "Yokumaru? What's wrong, Yokumaru?" She called upon him as she began to shake him in an attempt to rouse him. He was not in danger because the black-haired Kunoichi could still hear his breathing. In the arena. Then something happened. Naruto felt the rush of the red chakra as his eyes turned red with black slits in them, and his fangs and whisker marks became more noticeable. His red pupils turned gold and the white of his left eye turned black as the mask began to form on the left side of his face. Kimimaro lunged forward with a bone sword ready to attack, but he hesitated upon seeing Naruto. This allowed the blonde to deflect and deliver a devastating blow to the face. Kimimaro clenched his face and looked up. "Naruto?" He got a laugh from Naruto. That wasn't his own. Kimimaro struggled to stand up to defend himself as Naruto got ready for a lunge. Beep. The blonde was already in front of his relative with incredible speed. Naruto sent a powerful swipe that went deep into Kimimaro's flesh, and the boy kicked and struck like a wild animal, all the while laughing. The newcomer hit with such force and speed that the white-haired ninja could hardly keep up and was sent skidding to the ground. Over him, the possessed Naruto grinned maniacally. He drew a bone sword and began, "Now then." He sent the sword down, saying, "This will end it," and then abruptly stopped when it was just inches from Kimimaro's face. "What the?" The lanky sound ninja asked, "What?" And then, Naruto snatched up his mask and began tugging. "I apologize, but I'm reclaiming my body." Kimimaro was initially perplexed, but he eventually realized it was Naruto retaliating. "No, I was winning for you," he yelled. "Now, let's go." With a roar, Naruto ripped the mask from his face and collapsed to one knee, gasping for breath. The blonde's red Kyuubi fied eyes were fixed on his relative. "Sorry about that. Now where were we?" In the upper stands, Kurenai jumped back up in surprise as Yokumaru jolted back to consciousness. Naruto." Kurenai gave him a startled look. "Yokumaru, you're all right." He felt the demon fox touch his forehead. He said, "What just happened?" to her. "You fell unconscious, and I couldn't wake you up. I figured you were all right since we're still breathing, but..." Her voice carried concern, and Yokumaru didn't need anyone to be concerned about his welfare. His fellow Jonin blushed slightly and nodded as he smiled and reassured her, "You don't have to worry, I'm fine now." In the arena, thanks to the boosts from their respective sources, Naruto and Kimimaro are now neck and neck again. The blonde glanced up at his relative from a distance. "Well, I think it's time I finished this," he replied. Kimimaro's eyes narrowed. Naruto simply grinned and placed his hands on the ground, asking, "What do you mean? What is he doing? The dance of Bracken?" The blonde grinned. As the ground began to tremble, Kimimaro's eyes widened and he exclaimed, "Behold! My latest technique. Secret Uzumaki technique. Great Bone Forest Emergence." At that moment, enormous bones that resembled roots appeared, ensnaring the ninja and wrapping them around him as a giant willow tree grew up into the sky, carrying Kimi with it. A huge white willow tree appeared out of the dense forest, like Arena, leaving the audience dumbfounded. In the box of the cage, as Sarutobi watched the willow tree fully emerge, he burst out laughing. Well, looks like Naruto took a page from the Shodai Hokage's book and made it his own. Awaiting, the cage watched in silence. Now, Naruto-kun, what are you going to do? Kukuku. The cage was regarded with suspicion by Hiruzen. In the arena, Kimimaro emerged from the tree, still firmly bound by the willow tree, as Naruto approached it and placed his hand on it. Naruto sighed as the teenager shook his head defiantly, asking, "So Kimimaro, wanna surrender?" When he put his hands together, the roots holding Kimimaro tightened, squeezing his life from him. "Well, how's this?" he asked. The forest began to crumble into tiny fragments as Kimimaro struggled as his strength was drained from him, causing him to lose control of the cursed seal form and turn back. Now that the arena had been destroyed by battle and the previous Bracken dance, everyone could see Naruto at the base of the tree. When Kimimaro's head drooped, Naruto relaxed his hold and finally cancelled the jutsu, causing the enormous willow tree to disintegrate into tiny white fragments. With a gasp, Kimimaro landed on one knee and pulled out a bone sword. He charged at Naruto feebly, but was caught as he fell. Holding Kimimaro in his arms, Naruto shook his head. "Geez, you don't know when to quit, do you?" The lanky ninja simply gazed up at the sky. He coughed up blood and said feebly, "It's not in my nature." Kimimaro jerked up. With a worried tone, Naruto said, "Hey, Kimimaro, you're coughing up blood. I didn't hurt you too bad, did I?" The sickly ninja gave him a sidelong glance. "No, this is my disease acting up full swing, after I use the curse seal." Kimimaro was hunched over. Genma hurried to the two from outside the arena. He exclaimed, "The winner is Naruto Uzumaki." Kimimaro is carried on a stretcher by the medics who arrived just in time. As Naruto worriedly watched him leave, he said, Hey, what disease?" And then an Anbu popped up in front of the blonde. "What do you want?" "That's my relative." The Anbu gave a headshake. "Because of Kimimaro's ninja status, we have to put him in a disclosed location, sorry Naruto." When he heard the crowd cheering, the blonde let out a sigh. When Naruto looked up at them all in disbelief, he couldn't help but smile a little and scratch the back of his head in embarrassment. At that moment, he realized that everything would be fine. A Hinata-style glomp attack ambushed Naruto, preventing him from reaching the stands. The boy almost stumbled as Hinata gave him a tight squeeze. With the appearance of Heishi and Hanabi, the blonde simply gave her a hug in return. "Naruto-kun, you're alright, I'm so happy for you." Naruto began to panic upon seeing the two, but the head of the Hyuga clan dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "That's quite alright Naruto, and I must say you surprised me. You truly have your parents' blood." Naruto grinned and nodded to the Hyuga head. "Thanks, Heishi. Sama. It means a lot." Hiyashi turned to go. The still hugging teenagers nodded and headed to locate the Uchiha brothers. "You should go now, since we have a half-hour intermission because of your match." With Hinata following him, Naruto approached the Uchiha's sitting area. After a brief conversation, the two watched as the Uchiha rose to depart. The blonde gave them a wave. He called, "Hey, you guys." Sasuke smiled slightly as he turned to face him. They gave each other high fives and Naruto smiled, saying, "Yo, great match out there." Shocked the hell out of everyone. "We're going about the town to get food. This stadium food sucks, so we're about to get something that's edible. Wanna go?" Hinata and Naruto both nodded. Itachi glanced at his wallet and then turned to face the teenagers. He turned to face Ayame and said, "So, shall we go?" She nodded at him as they departed. In the streets, Inuzuka Hana. A Chunin, Kiba's older sister and Itachi's old teammate, let out a long sigh as she went down the street. She had gone to her room earlier to check for a message from him, but there had been none. Since they stopped communicating a while ago, she has been missing his letters a lot. His most recent letter mentioned that he would be returning home soon, but he is currently nowhere to be found. As her thoughts strayed to the potential of him being caught, she experienced a rare chill. The brunette didn't want to think, but the likelihood of it happening was growing every day. I hope you're still alive, she thought. Hana, Itachi, Kiba's teammate, and his students were all present when the Inuzuka looked up. He calmly remarked, "How have you been? It's been a while since we last spoke." The adolescent scratched her head. She laughed and said, "Yeah, it has. I swear we should get together more, for some drinks and stuff." Itachi grinned. "I'll skip the drinks, I think you just want to fight me again, don't you?" "Damn right I do. I'll beat you next time we fight." "Good luck." Sasuke brought the older teenagers to his attention by clearing his throat and saying, "Hem. Itachi. Aren't you gonna introduce us?" Uchiha, the elder, gave a nod. He pointed to Sasuke and Naruto, saying, "That's right. Hana, these are my students and brothers, Sasuke and Naruto." Hana waved hello to them and said, "Sasuke, Naruto, this is Hana Inuzuka, my former teammate from my Genin days. And I'm pretty sure you know Hina-chan." Hana grinned. With a menacing gleam in her eye, she said, "Yeah, I do. Good to see you, Hinata. My brother isn't giving you any more trouble, is he?" Sweating, Hinata dismissively waved her hands. The older girl nodded in agreement and said, "No, not at all. He's been kept in line thanks to Shino-kun." Naruto had a eureka moment at that point. He yelled, "Brother! Inuzuka! Ah! Kiba's your younger brother," with considerable emphasis. The blonde's hair was ruffled by Hana. "Ha ha ha, you're the infamous Naruto my brother complains about every day. Saying you're in his way for hooking up with Hinata." She smiled. Naruto laughed uneasily as Hinata blushed slightly. She smiled as she turned to Sasuke. Sasuke crossed his arms and averted his gaze, muttering that he's too old to be deemed cute. "Sasuke, I have to admit it, but you're kinda cute. You were twice as cute as Itachi back in the day. I bet you had twice the fangirls on you." Itachi turned to the brunette after flashing a tiny smile at the genin. "Say, Hana, since you're here and all, why won't you come with us to Yankikuku to eat? I bet you're just as sick of the stadium food as we are." Hana gave a playful smile. "Sue, is that date, Itachi?" The teenager deadpanned, "Yeah. A date." Ayame experienced a sharp rise in jealousy in the Stadwims. The brunette gave a hearty laugh. Seeing her trance from earlier, her former teammate eyed her and said, "I'm just joking. Anyhow, let's get going," as they walked. In the office of the Hokage, with a satisfied sigh, Sarutobi removed his hat and sagged in his chair. Thankfully, Naruto had arranged for an hour-long break, which would allow his ninja more time to get ready for the invasion. He noticed Jiraiya sticking his body through the window. The Toad Sennin hopped through the window and scanned the room, saying, "Hey, Sensei, there you are. Now where's—" A figure suddenly burst through a closed window, causing glass to break all around. Hiruzen pinched the bridge of Jiraiya's nose, making him tense. Beside Jiraiya, Yokumaru barrel rolled and got up nonchalantly. As Sarutobi sank farther into his chair, Jiraiya's eyes grew wide. "Yo Gramps. What did you call me for?" Jiraiya asked. "What? Something on my teeth." Hiruzen sighed and muttered. At least Jiraiya had the decency to open the window. The demon fox had question marks floating around it, and the Sannin was positive he saw them. The Sandaime stood up more erect. "Anyway, let's get to business. I'm curious as to why Orochimaru hadn't attacked yet. Your thoughts?" Jiraiya's arms were crossed. "I don't know. According to Kimamero's information, the signal should have been set by now, and the Sound 4 should have trapped Orochimaru and you." Sarutobi smoked his pipe while he tried to think of a reason. Why hadn't it happened yet, even though he knew the lanky ninja wasn't lying about his information? Yokumaru took the initiative. "I think I may know. Gaara hasn't gone yet. He's their secret weapon, right? They must be waiting for Sasuke and Gaara's fight, so that way they can activate the signal under the intensity of the fight and put everyone to sleep." Jiraiya glanced and nodded at the demon fox. "That sounds about right, but I have a feeling Sasuke fits into this equation somehow." The red-headed person gave a nod. He answered gravely, "Yeah, Orochimaru may use this to activate Sasuke's curse seal, and try to break his sanity." Jiraiya's eyes grew wide as the third stared intently. Break his sanity. What's the point of that? Sasuke's been fighting the dark temptations of the curse seal, and it has been taking a toll on him. He can't sleep well, and he looks like he's losing it. But that boy has been doing his best to hide it. Yokumaru continued. So, by breaking his sanity, he can openly control Sasuke and force him to give in to the curse seal. Jiraiya yelled. This is bad. I should find Sasuke and get rid of that seal. No, if you do that, you'll only hurt his pride. That's the last thing he needs right now. It will make Sasuke believe he doesn't have the power on his own to fight it. What he's been trying to do will go to waste. Sasuke has a plan, I believe. Sarutobi watched with curiosity. A plan? Yokumaru grinned and nodded. Yup, I think Sasuke is planning to control the curse seal and make it his own. The third chuckled. Jiraiya gave a rigid nod, saying, I see, I believe he has the willpower to do it. Moving on, when I fight Orochimaru, I'll be needing backup. So who's going to? He concluded. Kakashi and Itachi, along with us too, will be backing you up. We're not letting Orochimaru getting away with his life this time around. We need the best help we can get, Jiraiya replied. Hiruzen gave a nod. In a puff of smoke, the ninja vanished. All right, then, you two had better go, and get to helping prepare the village for the attack. We must make sure casualties are a minimum. Dismissed. In the Yankee-Kukyu, Hinata and Hana were supporting Naruto and Sasuke as they engaged in their eating contest once more. As Sasuke collapsed in defeat once more, gurgling that he was no longer able to eat, Itachi crossed his arms and grinned. To everyone who was interested, Naruto stood on the table and declared his victory. Yeah, I'm undefeated. Yosh. Hinata clapped as Hana gave Sasuke a heartfelt pat on the back. Itachi smiled and said, all right, get down from there before you break the table. The girl next to Naruto giggled at his dispense as he sheepishly left the table. Uchiha, the elder, turned to face the group. So Hana, how have things been? The brunette gave him a look. You know, same ol'. Doing mission, taking care of the dogs, the like. So how has a genin team been working out for you? She replied with a grin. When Itachi looked down, Hana saw right away that the joyous atmosphere was waxing and waning as Naruto's face darkened and Sasuke's took on a mixture of sadness and rage. My first genin team. I lost a student in the Chunin exams. The teenager's eyes grew wide. Oh my, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Itachi smiled up at her, and Hana looked down. Don't worry too much about it, you didn't know. The girl gave a sheepish smile. May I ask how it happened? Sasuke jerked his head down and said, she was killed during her match in the preliminaries. He recalled the graphic scene, and his fists clenched. And I'll avenge her death. Together, Hana put two and two. So, she was your teammate. Sakura Haruno. I'm terribly sorry for your loss. Itachi gave a headshake. The Inuzuka scratched the back of her head sheepishly and said, stop that already, you have nothing to be sorry about. We have our ways of dealing with it, so just stop apologizing already. They left Yankee-Kukyu as soon as Sasuke was well and began to stroll in the direction of the stadium while chatting. Hana sighed. Well, this is where we part. She waved to the group and said, I'm going to catch up with my family, so I'll be going. When Itachi approached and whispered something in her ear, the teenager arched an eyebrow at him and said, oh, Hana, wait a second. As the brunette hurried off to locate her family, her eyes grew wide. The Uchiha shrugged as the children gazed up at him. In the bleachers, as the group took their seats, Hinata announced that she was returning to her father, so she continued. Genma cleared his throat as they looked down. Okay, now that the arena has been fixed, can Shino and Kankuro please report down to the stands? From the stands, Kankuro yelled, Oi, I give up. Genma's eyebrow went up. You give up? Are you absolutely sure? Yeah, no way I'm gonna win. The referee from Jonin sighed. At Kankuro's forfeit, the audience jeered. Fine, the winner by default is Shino Aburame. Shino, meanwhile, was furious that he had been given an empty victory. Genma let out a sigh. Well, can Shikamaru Nara and Tamari report down to the arena? After rising from his chair, Naruto approached Shikamaru. Hey, your match is up, you ready? The genin with the pineapple head moaned. I don't feel like it, I think I'll give up like Kankuro. The blonde's smile was so sweet it made me sick. He pushed the teenager out of the stands and into the arena after saying, I thought as much. It was fortunate that Shikamaru wasn't forfeiting because she truly wanted to fight, Tamari said with a smile. Shika stood up and gestured toward Naruto in the bleachers. Naruto, you troublesome blonde. I'll get you for this, Naruto chuckled. Hurry up and get your match done. You know what's next. You're the appetizer. I hate being an appetizer. Too bad. When Shikamaru turned around, she saw Tamari tapping her finger on her fan patiently while she waited for him to stop so they could begin the match. The sigh came from Shikamaru. How troublesome.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.